Chapter 26. What disappointed Bernard was that until November, the Black Lake was frozen enough for skating, and nothing strange came into Hogwarts. Eugene, Bernard is fine, why are you so disappointed? It was rare for the five of them to have lunch together in the hall. Cologne looked at Eugene beside him in disbelief. He actually said what a pity after Bernard's complaint just now. The troll must have been brought into Hogwarts by someone. That person must have some purpose for doing so. Since he hasn't made any other noise for so long, either he has achieved his goal or he is still planning in secret. Uther cut a piece of sausage and put it in his mouth. Eugene nodded in agreement. Cologne scratched his head, knowing that his roommates were right in their analysis, but it is also possible that he has been solved by Professor Dumbledore? After all, he is the greatest wizard of this century. That's right. If Professor Dumbledore solves the problem, he probably won't tell us. Uther nodded. What do you think, Adam? Eugene looked at Adam. Me? Adam raised his eyebrows. If Eugene agreed with Uther, he wouldn't ask him this. Did he find something? I think it's not over yet. Of course, I'm just guessing. I think so too. It's an inexplicable feeling. Eugene talked a little more after getting familiar with them, but he rarely expressed his feelings like this. For a while, the others were silent. Oh, no matter what, Professor Dumbledore will always solve all problems, right? Let's think about something to be happy about, such as the Quidditch game that will start tomorrow. Cologne broke the silence. Has everyone heard about it? Gryffindor's seeker this year is actually a freshman, and it's the savior Harry Potter. Gryffindor vs. Slytherin. To be honest, I don't think this game is that exciting. Uther swiftly changed the subject. Hannah and the others said that Slytherin always likes to play tricks during the game and will do whatever it takes to win. Even if Harry Potter is powerful, he may not win unless he can catch the golden snitch at the beginning. Although he said so, everyone still gathered honestly in the stands of the Quidditch stadium the next day. This is the first time I've watched Quidditch from this angle. It was a bit noisy around, and Bernard had to raise his voice. In fact, we are too. Cologne leaned on the guardrail and looked very excited. Look, they are entering the field. Adam looked down. The distance was too far. He could only see the green and red teams below in the stands, and he couldn't tell which one was which. But the shortest one in the red team should be Harry. They met once when they entered school, but they didn't have much contact afterwards. After all, the only classes that Gryffindor and Hufflepuff had together were astronomy and history of magic, and Adam himself kept a certain distance from them. Accompanied by a sharp whistle, it was Madame Hooch's silver whistle, and the two teams climbed to the sky almost at the same time. Wow! Exclamations rang out in unison in the stands. Almost all of them were freshmen who saw a formal Quidditch match for the first time. The quaffle was fiercely fought back and forth between the two teams' chasers. The goalkeepers were always on guard to prevent the 3 goals from being broken through by the opponent. The beaters protected their teammates from the harassment of the Bloodjares. The Seekers. The 2 Seekers were wandering around the edge because there was no sign of the golden snitch. Despicable. Cologne excitedly slapped the guardrail. In fact, he was not the only one who did so because the Slytherin beater hit the bludger at a Gryffindor chaser, almost knocking him off his broom. Isn't that a foul? Bernard's eyes widened. Such behavior was simply unimaginable in the Muggle world. Of course not, it's within the rules. After all, no one can guarantee that the ball they hit will not hit something inexplicably. Well, there is some truth to that. However, the situation on the field changed quickly. The previous ball seemed to be a signal. The Slytherin Quidditch team quickly showed flexible moral qualities and jumped back and forth on the edge of the foul. Madame Hooch's silver whistle blew again and again, but it only made the Slytherin team's fouls more covered and difficult to determine, and did not awaken their competitive spirit at all. Even Adam couldn't help but complain. These people should replace the snake flag with the flag of the stolen country, so shameless. The rules of Quidditch are thoughts right, there are too many ambiguous areas for those who are interested to play. Adam and his friends were at the guardrail. As the game progressed, more and more students squeezed over. It was Cedric who spoke just now. He looked at the chaotic scene on the field and sighed. This is why it is always difficult for Hufflepuff to win. We always put the fun of Quidditch first, but it seems that we are the only ones who think so. If the Hufflepuff team was really so utilitarian, Cedric would not have not yet entered the Hufflepuff team with his strength. The Hufflepuff team will not kick out any player in order to win. The Ravenclaw team is special. They have a desire to win but will not let training interfere with their personal lives. Therefore, the gap between the upper and lower limits of the team's combat power is huge, and they compete with Hufflepuff for the third and fourth places all year round. As for the Slytherin team, whose playing style is similar to that of a certain thief. Look at the field. Cologne's exclamation made everyone look over, and they saw Harry struggling to control the out-of-control broom. His broom suddenly began to shake up and down in the air, rolling and tumbling. What's going on? Harry Potter's broom was broken. Cologne touched his chin and analyzed. I heard that the flying brooms in the school are indeed very old styles. The old styles are the brooms for flying classes, and the ones used in the competition are reliable ones with guaranteed quality. Usually only evil spells can interfere with their operation. Cedric's expression was very solemn. But evil spells? How dare Slytherin? Obviously, the most outrageous thing Slytherin did last year was to hit people directly. In a few years, they will not throw spells at each other directly in the sky, right? I remember that evil spells can only be activated by staring at the target and chanting the spell, right? Let's find out who it is. Cologne waved his fist. However, the group looked around but could not find the person who cast the spell. None of the Slytherins on the field met the requirements. It seems that the worst situation has occurred. The one who cast the spell is someone in the stands. But how can they find that person among so many people in the stands? Or, when the Hufflepuff team encounters this situation, how should they deal with it? Maybe it's worse. Eugene suddenly spoke, squinting his eyes and staring at Harry, who was still rising in the air. Maybe the person who cast the spell is not to help Slytherin. He just wants to hurt people. Uther was stunned and remembered what Eugene said yesterday. You mean, the person who brought the troll into Hogwarts? Eugene nodded. Chapter 27. Eugene's sharpness shocked Adam more than once, but Adam was shocked by him again. Adam asked in disbelief. Is this just your feeling? Any clues? No, it's just a inexplicable feeling. Eugene shook his head. I rarely have such a situation, but every time such a feeling is usually very accurate. That's too accurate. Looking at the students who were lost in thought, Adam didn't know what to say for a while. He couldn't tell them that there was a Voldemort on the back of Professor Quirrell's head. Fortunately, Eugene's guess was always just a guess, and everyone's attention returned to the field. The Slytherin team took advantage of the time when Harry was out of control to score crazy goals and scored 40 points in a short while. Quidditch games are ultimately won or lost by points. Catching the golden snitch is just a sign of the end of the game. Therefore, even if the golden snitch has 150 points, if the score difference between the two teams is too large, it may still be impossible to turn the tables. What a pity, it seems that Slytherin will win again this time. Cedric sighed. Do you really want Gryffindor to win? Cologne was a little curious. I don't want Gryffindor to win, but I want Slytherin to lose. Although I don't want to say this, no house in the school wants to see Slytherin win the Quidditch Cup, or the House Cup except Slytherin himself. Cedric looked around and said after confirming that there were only Hufflepuffs. Their victory always makes this honor lose its original glory, and their arrogant look after the victory makes people want to beat them up. You will see it later. It seems that Slytherin often wins. Uther said as he looked at the captain of the Slytherin team who grabbed the quaffle and was about to throw the ball. After all, people who do whatever it takes always have more advantages. Cedric shrugged and turned to leave. It seemed that he didn't intend to stay to see the moment when Slytherin won. At this moment, the sounds around suddenly became chaotic. This was not the sound that should be heard when Slytherin won. Cedric frowned and turned around to squeeze back to the edge of the guardrail to look down. Harry Potter knelt on the ground, but he held the golden snitch in his raised hand. Cedric was stunned and looked at the scoreboard. The difference between Gryffindor and Slytherin was far from 150 points. In other words, Gryffindor won. What did I miss? On the way back to the castle, Cedric wore a mask of pain all the way. Harry suddenly accelerated, probably because he found the golden snitch, and then dived all the way to the ground. Finally he knelt on the ground and coughed, and spit out the golden snitch. That's it. Cologne repeated it to him. We didn't see it clearly. Adam comforted him. It's complicated to say, but it was just a blink of an eye. By the time we reacted, Harry was already holding the golden snitch. Then at least you saw it. Cedric sighed and looked at Adam. Can I have 2 pumpkin pies to heal my broken heart? Come to my dormitory later. Adam sighed. He shouldn't have sympathized with this guy. Hey, thanks. Cedric patted Adam on the back and ran away. I have classes in the afternoon. I'll see you after dinner. The sudden situation on the Quidditch field seemed to be just a simple accident. Except for a few people, no one remembered it by the time of the second Quidditch game. Christmas is coming soon, and Hogwarts is finally filled with the festive atmosphere again. Aren't you all going home? Adam sorted his luggage and looked at his roommates who didn't plan to move. Uther shrugged his shoulders. My family is in Egypt, and it's not worth flying back during these few days of vacation. Cologne sighed. My parents went to the dragon farm to buy goods. I'll be alone if I go back, so I might as well stay in the dormitory. Eugene was silent for a while. I don't want to go back. Hearing his reason, the others wisely chose not to ask, but looked at Bernard. I want to see how wizards spend Christmas. Bernard's eyes lit up, as if he was looking forward to something. Adam had discovered before that this guy was very curious and very active. He dared to go into the restricted book area alone before. To be honest, Adam suspected that he might have already visited the room on the 4th floor. Well, since you are not going back, why don't I stay for Christmas too? Adam touched his chin and analyzed. No, don't think about us. If your family is still waiting for you to spend Christmas together, go back. The 4 of us won't feel lonely together. Cologne waved his hand generously. In fact, our family doesn't celebrate Christmas, but the Chinese Spring Festival. Christmas is just a simple holiday for us. And think about it carefully. If you make a batch of gingerbread men, candies, and other snacks for Christmas, it should be very popular. Adam's eyes lit up. Maybe you can make a lot of money. He did it right away. Adam picked up the feather pen and wrote a letter to his parents. The letter from Adam's parents was delivered in the early morning of the day before Christmas. It's done. Back in the dormitory, Adam put down the letter paper and the package that was sent with the letter. My parents not only agreed, but also sent me some ingredients. It's so thoughtful. What's in it? Hearing that it was food, the roommates were no longer sleepy. Those who wanted to take a nap immediately struggled to get out of the bed. There was no other way. In this weather, even a body made of iron could not withstand the impact of a bed made of magnets. It's all kinds of sugars: maple syrup, maltose, and brown sugar, and osmanthus honey. Adam unpacked the package and lined up the boxes with different sweet aromas on the table. His eyes lit up when he saw the last one. And glutinous rice? Mom is so thoughtful. I remember I brought red dates before. Why not make snacks that are too soft? Let's make a treasure rice pudding. The bean paste I made last time is not used up yet. Slurp gulp. The sound of swallowing saliva rang out in the dormitory. Although they couldn't understand it, they just had to eat what Adam made. However, after swallowing his saliva, Cologne looked at the various ingredients in front of him, each of which was not much, and showed concern. Although there are many varieties of these things, there is only a little of each. Is it really enough to sell? Don't worry, these ingredients are enough. After all, I still have magic. Adam put the ingredients back together, and recipes have emerged in his mind. His plan to promote Adam's small shop to the entire Hogwarts on Halloween was forced to be interrupted. This time, he must let the whole Hogwarts feel the power of the mysterious food from the East. Chapter 28. On the morning before Christmas, Adam pushed the food cart to the castle hall and was startled by the crowd in front of him. What's going on? Ah, Adam, you're finally here. With the advantage of height and understanding of Adam's route, Cedric quickly found Adam, squeezed out of the crowd and walked to Adam. Wow! You even got a car! On the surface of the food cart, only lids of various materials and shapes can be seen. Cedric smelled it but couldn't smell the specific fragrance, and couldn't help but curiously asked. What's in it? All delicious. Adam kept it a secret and looked at the crowd not far away. What are you doing? Waiting for you to come. Waiting for me to come. Yes, remember you posted a piece of paper in the public lounge to advertise before. Adam hesitated. Of course I remember, but are there so many Hufflepuffs staying in school for Christmas? Some decided not to go back this year after hearing the news, but that's not the point. Cedric glanced at the group of people, and those on the periphery had already noticed them. Seeing so many Hufflepuffs gathered here, students from other colleges also gathered here out of curiosity, and more people gathered. Cedric looked at Adam, who swallowed his saliva and shrugged. Anyway, I hope you have prepared enough food. I think almost all the students who stayed in Hogwarts for the holiday are here. Ah, this. Adam hesitated. Enough should be enough. After all, if it's not enough, he can change again. The double-card elves are now in the dining car. But isn't it bad for so many people to gather here? The hall is almost full, and other people's normal walking will be affected. Originally, when he decided to set up a stall here, he didn't think there would be so many people. There are not so many people in the hall when there are the most classes. You make sense. How about going to the North Tower? The ground floor there used to be a warehouse, it's quite spacious. Cedric suggested. Okay. Then you go first quickly, they seem to have noticed this place, I'll go and tell them. Noticing that there were already a few Hufflepuffs familiar with him crowding over here in the crowd not far away, Adam quickly floated up the dining cart and ran away. Seeing this, Cedric took the initiative to walk towards the crowd to buy time for Adam. When Cedric led the crowd to the North Tower, Adam had cleared a large space on the ground floor of the North Tower, and huge menus were hung on the walls around. Adam and his dining cart were in the center of the space. Please line up according to the arrows, one by one. Adam greeted the crowd. You can look at the menu to decide what to buy while queuing. Originally, the Hufflepuffs who were walking in the front were quite confident in Adam's cooking skills, but after hearing the second half of Adam's sentence, most of them slowed down and planned to look at the menu first. The flyer in the common room said that there would be dozens of new products today. Cedric was the type who didn't hesitate, and was the first to walk to Adam's food cart. Give me one of each. Having money means you can be willful, you don't need to make a choice, he wants them all. Every kind. Adam was stunned and reminded him. But there are 100 kinds of food here. 100 kinds. Cedric was stunned and looked at the food cart in front of him. It didn't look like it could hold so many things. Could it be? Traceless extension spell. How can I, a freshman, know such advanced magic? I just used some storage tricks. Storage tricks ring card, the magic of this claw card can extend, twist, and splice space. Looking at Adam's sincere expression, Cedric no longer doubted it. Maybe it was magic like the shrinking spell. Then recommend me some new products. I haven't had breakfast yet and I'm almost starving. Do you want something Eastern or Western? Eastern. If they want new products, of course they want the most novel ones. Didn't have breakfast? Then have a bowl of rice with 8 treasures. For the rest, you can look at the wall over there. There are all new products from China. The staple food, desserts, and soups are all classified. Cedric followed Adam's finger and tried to pick out a few that interested him from the dazzling array of dishes. Amber nuts? Dragon beard crisp? Too soft heart? These names look so special. Let's have a portion of each. Experience tells him that food from China with strange names often brings surprises, but just in case Cedric still ordered 2 more normal-looking dishes. Another green bean cake and 1 sesame rice dumpling. Okay, eat the heartwarming rice cake and 8 treasure rice while they are hot, and be careful not to spill the sesame rice dumpling. Adam opened the dining car with the magic of the wheel card, and the interior space was extended and spliced. He quickly packed Cedric's food and gave him a large cup of purt to relieve his greasiness. In fact, the British don't seem to need something to relieve their greasiness. The sugar they add to their desserts on a daily basis is completely lethal in Adam's eyes. What he bought is a low-sugar version for them. Cedric paid and took it and started eating right away, starting with the amber nuts that were not steaming. He ate while walking. The Hufflepuff who was standing behind him and had not yet decided but also had not eaten breakfast swallowed his saliva. Give me the same one as Cedric. The business of the small shop was in full swing. In addition to Hufflepuff, many people from the other 3 colleges were attracted and bought some to try. This was enough for Adam. No wonder the hall was so deserted this morning. It turns out that everyone was enjoying the food here. Adam, who was packing up the dining cart, looked up and saw Professor Dumbledore standing in front of the dining cart with a smile. I wonder if I am too late. Of course not, Professor, what do you want? Adam pointed to the menus on the walls on both sides. Professor Dumbledore raised his eyebrows at the menus on the wall. Since the business is to be promoted and no longer a small business within the college, Adam will certainly not continue to use the ingredients from the Hogwarts kitchen, and the price has also been adjusted to a relatively reasonable price. Professor Dumbledore came after breakfast, and sighed after ordering 3 snacks. I wish I knew this before breakfast. The sweet aroma was all around, which was too tempting for him. Professor Dumbledore took the packed dessert and left. Adam didn't take it too seriously. After all, it was not the first time that Professor Dumbledore came to the store, but he didn't expect that Professor Dumbledore would come again not long after. Professor Dumbledore held a bowl of hot heart-warming sweets in his hand, and his face was full of happiness. I wonder if you can take orders from the school and make a Christmas Eve buffet for Hogwarts. Orders from Hogwarts? While Adam was still surprised, Professor Dumbledore continued. Of course, you may not prepare so much food, but the kitchen and house elves of Hogwarts can help you, and the price is still calculated according to your menu. Professor Dumbledore winked mischievously. Anyway, the school board will pay for it. Chapter 29. Whether in terms of publicity or revenue, Adam had no reason to refuse Professor Dumbledore's order. So in the afternoon, the students who came here through various channels of publicity saw that the legendary store was only a large box with a hollow top. The menu on the wall was still there, but there was an additional notice. In addition to explaining the situation, the notice also attached a line of tips. Students who came to the store but found it empty can take a number paper from the box. There will be a mysterious surprise at the dinner party, so stay tuned. Harry and Ron, who didn't get up in the morning and had tasted the sweetness of Seamus Finnegan in the afternoon, stared at the words with some curiosity. What do you think it would be? Maybe something like a lottery firecracker. Lottery firecrackers only appeared on the Hogwarts dining table today. When they were pulled open, there would be explosions and colorful smoke, and some small toys would be spit out, which could indeed be considered a surprise. But if that's the case, there shouldn't be an extra sentence. No matter what, Harry and Ron each took a number paper from the box. Ron wanted to take a few more to try, but unfortunately he almost fell into the box and didn't touch the second one. In the expectation of everyone, the Christmas dinner started as scheduled. The doors of the auditorium that were closed at Adam's request slowly opened, presenting everything in the auditorium to everyone. The smell of honey, the smell of caramel, the smell of fruit. The refreshing sweet fragrance floated over the auditorium. The dishes on the table were different from any previous dinners, which made every student who entered the auditorium swallow their saliva. There are flowers on the table. A Ravenclaw girl approached a rose and smelled it. As a result, she smelled not only the fragrance of flowers but also the sweet fragrance. She couldn't help but be stunned. This smell, isn't this a flower? How is it possible? This looks obviously. Her friend was about to say something when she saw her reach out and pick the flower and put it in her mouth. It's really not a flower, it's a pastry. The whole flower tastes soft and almost melts in the mouth. The rich rose fragrance and light sweetness spread between the lips and teeth, making people intoxicated. Her friend saw this and picked a flower and stuffed it into her mouth doubtfully. Anyway, roses are not poisonous, so it's okay to try it. As a result, she quickly sank into the delicious pastry. After a long time, the Ravenclaw opened his eyes and looked suspiciously at the things on the table that didn't look like food, such as the candlestick that was not lit. This is chocolate. From a Gryffindor who really bit the candlestick. This is cake. From a Slytherin who ate the little snowman. This is candy. From a Gryffindor who bit the little Christmas tree in disbelief. This is a cookie. From a Hufflepuff who bit the mistletoe branch. Ah! This is the table. From a Gryffindor who confidently took a bite of the table under his brother's persuasion. Ahem! Seeing that the decorations on the table were almost eaten up, Professor Dumbledore quickly tapped the goblet with a spoon to attract the students' attention. I believe everyone has noticed that our dinner today is different from the past. There are many new and delicious foods. This is all thanks to our Mr. Adam Reed. Adam stood up and gestured to everyone. Before the dinner begins, I have to say one more thing. Although Adam has made a lot of clever ideas in the decoration tonight, I still hope that everyone can pay more attention to the food. Professor Dumbledore said and looked at the long table of Gryffindor. Adam looked over and saw 2 identical boys silently putting a branch under the table. Exactly the same, still Gryffindor, plus this look is similar to the movie, obviously the twins of the Weasley family. But he didn't remember turning such a big Christmas tree into food. Where did the twins get it from? Wait. Adam looked back at the big Christmas trees in the hall, and found a broken section on one of them. Especially don't destroy the decorations that are not on the table. They can't be eaten. I can assure you. Professor Dumbledore added. A dinner party allowed all the little wizards who stayed in Hogwarts for Christmas to experience the sweets in Adam's store. These delicious and novel foods left a deep impression on them. The professors were happy, and the students were fine. They had spent countless Christmases in Hogwarts, and today the Christmas of that year was quite new to them, and thus their appetites were whetted. Adam saw it with his own eyes. Professor McGonagall ate half of the white fish soup on the teacher's table, and Hagrid ate 6 elbows, so that Adam had to notify the house elves to put a few more on the teacher's table. Professor Dumbledore was also very happy. The professors carefully prepared the decoration of the auditorium, but it was a big deal that few people came. But Adam did nothing wrong. Although there was no precedent, Hogwarts did not have a school rule that prohibited students from running normal businesses on campus. Now it can be said that it is a win-win situation. The school dinner went much better than expected, and the students' business was booming. Although it cost a little more money, it was the money of the board of directors, and he didn't feel bad about spending it. As for Adam, he was probably the happiest. Although the little wizards who stayed in Hogwarts only accounted for a small part of all the students, they were dispersed widely enough. With every professor, each of these people had eaten every product in their own store. What kind of advertising effect was this? He even thoughtfully changed the patterns on each food container into the name of the corresponding food, so that everyone can remember their favorite food and buy it next time they come to the store. As for the price, not only did he not spend a penny, but he also made a lot of money. He was simply crazy about winning. Back in the dormitory, even Uther couldn't help but be curious. How much did you make from the dinner tonight? A little bit, just a little bit. Adam made a little bit gesture with his index finger and thumb. It seems to be a lot of money, but this money really belongs to you. Cologne touched his bulging belly and nestled comfortably in the sofa. Adam, you must open a store as soon as you graduate. Why not open it in Hogsmeade? It only costs more than 50,000 galleons to buy a store there. The most important thing is that it is next to his house. Okay, then we can try to develop dishes made with magical animals and buy directly from your house. Sure. I'll give you a discount. Listening to what the two said, Eugene said. If you want to open a store, I think Diagon Alley is more suitable. Although the store there is more expensive, the flow of people is larger. The store can be rented first. In fact, I also prefer Hogsmeade. Adam shook his head. The stores in Diagon Alley are too close together, which does not match the restaurant I expected. You want to open a Black Swan in the wizarding world? Bernard was surprised. Black Swan is the name of Mr. Reed's French restaurant. The name will definitely not be Black Swan. I haven't thought about it yet. The decoration must also conform to the style of the wizarding world, but it's probably that idea. Chapter 30. The next morning when Adam woke up, the first thing he saw was Cologne writing furiously on the round table. What time did you get up? Adam stretched. Ahem, I didn't sleep last night and wrote all night. Cologne coughed a little embarrassedly. I had too much fun before, and now it's the last day. I was so nervous lying in bed last night. After tossing and turning, I got up and started to write homework. Adam has gotten used to his habit of leaving homework to the last minute. He looked under the Christmas tree. Have you opened the presents? Not yet, I plan to use opening presents as a reward for finishing my homework. Ahihi. Cologne yawned as he spoke. It was not the first time that he worked all night to finish his homework. Adam shook his head and ignored him. He walked under the Christmas tree and found his own present. Open mine first. Okay. Adam found the present Cologne sent and opened it, and found that it was actually a pair of chopsticks. These are chopsticks made of unicorn horns. Cologne smiled proudly. Unicorn horns can detoxify. You always eat some weird things, and you plan to cook with magical animals and plants. You don't have to worry about poisoning with this pair of chopsticks. Thank you, I like it very much. Adam really likes it. Which foodie can refuse a pair of chopsticks that can detoxify? But the price of this thing should be very expensive. What is your gift for me? Cologne just asked and shook his head. Oh no. Don't tell me yet. I'll open it myself after I finish my homework. Cologne then buried his head in his homework again. Adam shook his head and laughed. Fortunately, he knew Cologne's personality very well and knew that the gift he gave would most likely be of high value, so his gift was also very precious. Cologne had so many magical animal products, so he should like his gift a feather of fox. That was a surprise he got when he went to play with Fox. At first, he thought he touched too hard. After Professor Dumbledore explained, he knew that it was a gift from Fox because he liked him. Come to think of it, Mr. Ollivander couldn't have grabbed the phoenix to make the wand and plucked it. The phoenix itself has the ability to change its feathers. Now he has saved a lot of feathers, and even saved a lot of phoenix tears. Continue to open the gifts. Uther gave a scarab-shaped amulet, the main body of which is a huge green gem, which looks very valuable. Bernard gave a box of parts. Adam searched and found the instruction manual at the bottom of the gift box. It turned out to be a disassembled Barrett. It was another day to sigh that his roommate could be tortured and handcuffed. Eugene's gift surprised Adam a little. It looked like just a bottle of transparent liquid, but Adam felt a huge magic power from it. What is this, potion? Normally, potions are not transparent, but Adam still cast Escape an Apparition charm, and the result showed that the bottle of liquid was not a potion. It's a bottle of spring water. Eugene's voice came from behind Adam, and Adam turned around to see Eugene sitting on the bed as if he had just woken up. Fountain water. Yes, the Fountain of Good Fortune, have you heard of it? The Fountain of Good Fortune? I seem to have heard of it somewhere. Ah! Isn't that the fairy tale in the Tales of Beetle the Bard? Bathing in the water of the Fountain of Good Fortune can bring people permanent good luck, but in fact, the Fountain of Good Fortune has no magic. Cologne's attention was attracted again. You'd better hurry up and do it. The professors have really assigned a lot of homework this time. After persuading Cologne to go back and finish his homework, Adam looked at Eugene curiously. Is this really the water from the Fountain of Good Luck? Actually, I don't know either. It's just a fairy tale, although it's a fairy tale for wizards. My parents have been studying these stories and anecdotes all their lives. I have hardly seen them a few times. The only things I know about them are the things they send back from time to time and the increasing amount of money in Gringotts. I don't even know if they still look the same as the portraits at home. Eugene sighed. This was the first time he told them about his parents. But this may really be the water from the Fountain of Good Luck. Even if it's not, it should be something else good, otherwise they wouldn't deliberately store this water in the deepest secret vault of Gringotts. Hey? What secret vault? Who's short of money? Uther got up from the bed sleepily. No, I feel like no one in our dormitory is short of money. Adam couldn't help but complain. As Eugene's family background was revealed, his family seemed to be the poorest in the whole dormitory. But then he looked at Eugene worriedly. King. Gringotts' secret vault. That's the wizard's bank. I know that. I just want to say that it's not a good idea to give us the treasured things your parents collected as gifts. It's okay. I grew up with my grandmother and didn't have many friends. Before coming to Hogwarts, my grandmother took out the bottle of good luck fountain from the secret vault and asked me to take it with me, hoping that I would have good luck and find some friends. As he spoke, Eugene looked at Cologne, who put down his pen and looked at himself, at Adam, at Uther, and at Bernard, who was still sleeping, and smiled slightly. But before I used the good luck fountain, I seem to have found the best friends in the world, so I divided the bottle of good luck fountain into 4 parts and gave it to you, my friends. Adam held the bottle of liquid tightly. Although he didn't know whether it was the water of the good luck fountain, even if it was, the emotional value of it exceeded its own value. I'll keep it well. Seeing Adam's expression, Eugene smiled even more brightly. Don't treasure it so much, maybe it's just a bottle of ordinary water. It's common to be cheated in this kind of research. Despite saying so, everyone still kept the lucky spring water that Eugene gave to everyone. Due to Adam's good popularity, it was almost noon when they finished opening the gifts, but other classmates were just good classmates, and the gifts were basically courtesy gifts. Adam checked that everyone had given gifts to someone, so he didn't pay much attention. Everyone planned to have lunch together in the auditorium, but as soon as they walked into the common room, Adam was stopped by Ernie. The twins from the Weasley family are waiting for you outside. What? Adam was stunned, and Ernie thought he didn't remember. It's the twins who won the lottery last night. Do you remember that Adam left a message before and asked every student who went to the North Tower to take a number? At the dinner, Adam invited Professor Dumbledore and the 4 deans to draw a number from the number box, 1 large and 4 small. Fred, the older twin brother, was drawn by Professor Dumbledore and won the mysterious prize, a replica of the Hogwarts cookie house. By the way, the number drawn by Professor Snape was Harry. At that time, Professor Snape looked at his hand as if he was looking at something dirty. What are they looking for me for? I'll go and see, you guys go to the hall first. Okay. We'll save a good seat for you. Chapter 31. Adam found the twins by the stairs. They were quite well behaved and did not wait at the entrance of the Hufflepuff dormitory. What do you want to talk to me about? Oh. Adam, you are finally here, my friend. One of the twins saw Adam's eyes light up and walked over with open arms. Faced with such a warm welcome, Adam couldn't help but take a half step back. Hey! Fred, you scared him. George hooked his brother's collar and pulled him back. Ahem, okay, let's be reserved. Fred cleared his throat, looked at Adam with George, and said in unison. My dear friend, are you interested in joining Fred and George's great cause? Great cause? Adam raised his eyebrows. Aren't these two just good at playing pranks? Yes. The two of them took out a bunch of colorful candies like a magic trick. These are the great inventions of Fred and George. Fred picked up a candy and said proudly. Just one piece will start your nose bleeding, allowing you to skip classes openly. It should be noted that your health will not be affected in this process. Of course, it is best to pretend to be weak. George added. Then the two introduced other candies, some that can make people vomit, some that can make people feverish, and some that can make people comatose. They call them quick-acting skipping candies. How is it? Is it a super great invention? Do you want to buy it as soon as you hear it? For most students, perhaps these are very practical skipping artifacts, but obviously the two did not do more research on Adam in advance. These candies are indeed very innovative, so why did you come to me? Adam suddenly had a bad guess. Let me make it clear in advance that I will not help you sell these things. I hope that the food I sell will bring happiness to people. Our inventions also bring happiness to people. After defending his invention, Fred waved his hand. But we are not asking you to help us sell these. In fact, they are far from finished products in our eyes. That's right, although we have made these quick-acting skipping candies have various practical effects, their taste is completely different from candies. Even if you smell them, you can quickly find something wrong, not to mention the taste. There is no concealment in our plan. The two brothers sighed together. The time we spent on seasoning is almost catching up with the time we spent on mixing their ingredients. Do you want to try it? No, thank you. Simply rejecting the candy handed over by the brothers, Adam probably guessed the purpose of the two people coming to him. So you are looking for me to season these prank props? Right. So we come to you, the expert in making candy. The two looked at Adam with shining eyes. You can even make candy look like Hogwarts. What a genius ability. If we work together, these quick-acting skipping candies will definitely be very popular. In fact, there is more than that. We have more good ideas. It's a pity that we found that making these things well does not only require genius prank ideas, but also some other talents, such as cooking. With your participation, we can turn more ideas into reality. After listening to the last two people's unanimous words, Adam thought for a while. It's not completely impossible. It sounds like this thing is really marketable. Hearing this, smiles appeared on the faces of the two brothers. But how much do you plan to pay me? You can't let me work for you for free, right? Ahem, of course we can't do such a thing. Although they really didn't think of asking Adam to work for them for free, the cash-strapped twins looked around. Although they didn't ask about Adam's studies before they came, they obviously asked about Adam's business. Even when Adam was only in Hufflepuff and the price was low, the profitability was exaggerated for them. After all, although Adam had a small profit before, he sold a lot. Almost the entire Hufflepuff was his customer, and Hufflepuff was the most populous college in Hogwarts. Although we don't have much money now, we can give you a share. Adam was indeed more interested when he heard this. It seemed that the twins had really thought about this problem to be able to think of using this method to get him to join. At this time, they had all read "Yeah, are you seriously thinking about making pranks as a future career? You can see the future prospects of the quick-acting skipping candy, right? I believe that once this product is launched, students will definitely rush to buy it. We can use this product as the first project of cooperation, and you will get 30%, 40% of the profit of each candy. If the cooperation goes well, we can start more cooperation. It has to be said that what the twins are doing at this time is a bit like entrepreneurs holding a pie in the sky PPT to try to convince investors, but obviously now these two people don't even have a PPT, and they just rely on their mouths to draw pie in the sky, and they also take the semi-finished products directly to Adam, a possible investor, without leaving any bottom line. Maybe it was Adam's small shop that stimulated them, so they tried to see if they could make a profit through prank props earlier and more eagerly. After listening to their plan, Adam fell into thinking. It has to be said that this pie is indeed attractive enough. Even if you put aside your good impression of the twins when you saw the work, this business is a sure win for Adam. After all, he knew that the Weasley's Wizard Weeze's business would be very hot in the future, especially the quick-acting skipping candy. The only problem was that after joining the company, he would have to spend time to be responsible for the seasoning. Was it worth it for him to spend this time? This was not something that could be easily solved with Gump's magic. He did not plan to teach Gump's magic to others. It was impossible for all the candies to be sent to him before they left the factory, right? If he only considered profit, then spending time to season these candies would certainly be profitable, but to be honest, Adam was not short of money. Even if he did not run a small shop, his parents' restaurant and wine shop would be enough for him to lie for hundreds of years, not to mention that the Philosopher's Stone could turn stones into gold. The twins saw that he made so much money from selling desserts, but in fact, his purpose of selling desserts was like cooking for himself. The main purpose of doing these things was to have fun. Seasoning these prank candies. As Adam thought, his brows furrowed tighter and tighter, and the twins' hearts became more and more excited. Chapter 32. Seeing that Adam didn't reply for a long time and was already inclined to refuse, Fred gritted his teeth and said, "If you agree, we can give you 60% of the profit of the quick-acting skipping candy." George added, "No more, we must at least recover the research and development funds of the quick-acting skipping candy. This is already the bottom line of their psychological price." Adam's thinking was interrupted by the words of the two people, and he looked at the twins in front of him in surprise. What he didn't know was that the existence of his small shop stimulated Fred and George in a sense. They felt that their genius ideas could also be operated and monetized, so they accelerated the research and development of the quick-acting skipping candy. As a result, the cost of the quick-acting skipping candy coming out early was to make the brothers' already limited funds worse. In other words, they might, probably, possibly, have to borrow another sum of money from Adam to make the first batch of finished products after the quick-acting skipping candy is developed. However, they are afraid of scaring Adam away, so they didn't tell Adam all at once. In addition, Fred and George had to consider that no one could guarantee whether the quick-acting skipping candy could really sell well, and they needed a senior with business experience to help them. It must be said that the fact that the research and development of the quick-acting skipping candy was not as smooth as expected was a big blow to them, causing some frustration in their confidence. In addition to the above and the subsequent research and development of the quick-acting skipping candy, what they need now is a partner with sufficient dessert-making experience, store management experience and sufficient funds. To put it more bluntly, if they still want to carry on their dream business as soon as possible, they must win Adam's cooperation. Seeing that the two people's eyes were full of anxiety and expectations for their dreams, Adam thought for a while. "Okay, we can try to cooperate on the quick-acting skipping candy first." "Great." The twins rushed to hug Adam, but Adam put his hand on his shoulder. "Wait, don't be happy yet. I need a detailed plan, such as how high you plan to control the cost of the quick-acting skipping candy, the target population, etc., and the specific matters of cooperation also need to be signed in a contract." Seeing Adam's professional look, the twins nodded and wrote it down and said it was no problem. "We will give you what you want before tomorrow night. See you later." Adam shook his head as he looked at the two people running away. That was not something that could be completed in one day. He would know when they wrote it. After rushing to the auditorium to finish lunch, Adam didn't expect to be found again on the way back. "Adam. Do you remember us?" "Of course, Hermione, Ron, and Harry." Adam looked at the trio in front of him, smiling with some doubt. "Do you want to talk to me about something?" It was obvious that the other party still remembered him after not seeing him for a long time, which made the three of them happy, especially Ron. "We want to ask you when your store usually opens." "Ron." Hermione stared at him in disbelief. "Ah, of course, ahem, there is another thing I want to ask you. By the way, do you know Nicholas Flamel?" Ron suddenly remembered the business and added awkwardly. "Except for holidays and special instructions, I will open the North Tower every Saturday afternoon. After answering Ron's first question, Adam looked at Hermione. As for Nicholas Flamel, I haven't heard of this name. Is that so? Okay. Hermione sighed with some disappointment. She had inquired about Adam's recent situation before. Unlike the twins who were more concerned about Adam's business, Hermione paid more attention to Adam's studies. Thanks to two guys who forgot about the investigation during the holiday, their investigation progress was still 0 after a holiday. She thought that asking Adam, an excellent student, might give her some clues. Now it seems that Adam doesn't know either. Can I ask why you are looking for this name? It's like this, we previously. What shocked Adam was that Harry and the others did not hide anything from him, and directly told him about the whole thing they were investigating, and added don't tell anyone casually at the end. You're casually telling anyone, do you mean that if someone asks you about your purpose of inquiring about Nicholas Flamel, you will tell the whole thing? So if you find any information related to Nicholas Flamel, remember to tell us. Okay. Adam showed an embarrassed but polite expression. Smile then quickened her pace with a headache. It's a bit strange. Hermione narrowed her eyes at Adam's back. Strange? What's strange? I can't really say. It's just a feeling that Adam should know something about Nicholas Flamel, and his reaction is a bit too bland. Hermione looked at Harry. Normally, when hearing that Harry's abnormality in the Quidditch match was caused by Professor Snape, there should be some special reaction, right? But he acted too normal, as if he knew about it a long time ago. Harry clapped his hands and said, right. It seems that we have found some clues. Hermione nodded and looked at Harry and Ron. You two, take turns to follow Adam and see if you can find any clues. Or you go to the library and I'll follow Adam. Okay. Harry felt dizzy just thinking about the words all over his eyes, so it would be more convenient to follow Adam. Ron looked at Hermione and then at Harry, thinking that they were probably too sensitive, but he had no good ideas, so he could only remain silent. After that day, Adam was somewhat troubled to find that Harry and Ron often appeared beside him for some reason, usually only one of them, and they didn't come to find him, just following from a distance. After following for a long time, the Hufflepuff classmates also found that they seemed to be following Adam. Cedric came to Adam while eating in the hall. What's wrong with those guys? Do you want us to help you solve it? Even if they are saviors, they can't bully them Hufflepuffs. Not to mention the Hufflepuff chef. Adam glanced in the direction of the Gryffindor long table and saw that the trio immediately looked like they were eating seriously. He sighed helplessly. No need, they don't have any bad intentions. I'll solve it. It seems that it's time to find Professor Dumbledore. As a result, when he arrived at the door of the principal's office, Adam unexpectedly found that the passwords in the principal's office were all wrong. Could it be that they changed to some kind of dessert I made? Adam didn't plan to perform the name-calling in front of the principal's office. He probably guessed that Professor Dumbledore was either not there or didn't want to see him. Then he had to find another way. Once, when Ron was trying to follow Adam quietly, he was suddenly hugged by a figure who jumped out from the side. Hey! Ron, it's been a long time since we last met. Are you interested in trying the new candy that my brother has researched? What are you talking about? Didn't we just meet this morning? Let me go. I don't have time now. Ugh. Chapter 33. After being caught by the Weasley twins several times and experiencing various tortures such as vomiting and nosebleeds, Harry and Ron also realized that the two seemed to be stopping them from following Adam. However, just when they were indignant and were about to tell Hermione about this news after the effect of the drug wore off, Hermione found them happily. I found news about Nicholas Flamel. What are you doing? Hermione looked at the two people's faces suspiciously. Ahem, it's okay. Harry changed the tissue that blocked his nose without changing his expression, and the white tissue was soaked by the nosebleed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Let's talk about Nicholas Flamel. That's it. Adam, who finally entered the principal's office again, stroked Fox's body with professional skills, and shared with Professor Dumbledore the abrupt tracking and ending of Harry and Ron during this period. I think they have probably found out about Nicholas Flamel on their own. Sorry, Professor Dumbledore. No, kid, you have nothing to apologize for. You kept our promise, didn't you? Professor Dumbledore smiled very kindly. Maybe. I'm just a little worried about the Philosopher's Stone. Sometimes children will have a very persistent desire to explore. It may not be a bad thing to let them go. As for the Philosopher's Stone, Professor Dumbledore blinked at Adam. Don't worry. I will protect it. I don't believe you. Suddenly, Adam paused while stroking Fox's hand, and very skillfully put the naturally fallen phoenix feather into his pocket, and then took out a piece of malt bamboo rice cake from his pocket and fed it to Fox to supplement its nutrition. The smooth movement made Professor Dumbledore's eyes jump slightly. After feeding Fox, Adam said goodbye and left. Professor Dumbledore looked at the old man who jumped back to the shelf after Adam left with some resentment, and tentatively stretched out his hand, with the sizzling honey candy in his palm. Fox took a look, ignored Dumbledore, and turned his head away silently. After coming out of the principal's office, Adam met the Weasley twins on the way back to the dormitory. Hey, Adam. We completed your commission perfectly. So, the plan we gave you last time. Ah, you came at the right time. I think the contract can be revised. Adam took out the twins' previous plan from his bag and looked at the two people with frozen smiles on their faces. As for the share, I think 40% is a more appropriate price. From the abyss to heaven, at this moment Adam seemed to be shining behind the twins' eyes. Oh. Adam. You are such an angel. Let's have a friendly hug. Listen to me first. Not knowing if these two people were related to Newt's brother, otherwise why they liked to hug so much, Adam pulled them away from him and said seriously. The 40% I mentioned is not pure profit. The smiles on the twins' faces faded a little. 40% of the selling price. It's lower than the previous bottom line, but the bottom line can be lowered. It's shares. Shares. You should have no money now, right? Adam waved the plan in his hand and raised his eyebrows at the twins. Rent a store, purchase raw materials, process and produce, bulk packaging. How many of these steps do you have enough funds to complete? Ahem. That. We initially planned to operate a small-scale pilot operation inside Hogwarts. In fact, we don't need to consider the steps of stores and packaging on campus. Fred and George's eyes wandered, talking about the words they had heard from their roommates who came from Muggle families during this period. So we really have no money now QAQ. Looking at the twins who were crying and hugging each other, Adam reached into his bag again. In view of your current financial situation and the feasibility of your plan, I decided to inject some funds into your magic trick shop to help you with the initial business activities. Adam took out a bulging purse and shook it in his hand. The sound of coins colliding inside immediately attracted the attention of Fred and George. And this money is not given to you for free, but to buy the shares of your magic trick shop. We roughly understand, so how much money do you plan to pay and how many shares do you plan to buy? Fred and George looked at each other and their expressions became serious. After all, the shares are related to the future operation and even ownership of the magic trick shop. I just said that I want 40%, as for how much? Adam handed the purse to the twins. Here are 100 gold galleons, which is the first phase of investment. If you fail, I will give it to you as a gift. If you succeed, I will add 1,900 gold galleons in succession and settle it before you graduate. 100 gold galleons. 1,900 gold galleons in succession. Then together, wouldn't it be 2,000 gold galleons? Fred and George swallowed their saliva. In their worldview, such a large sum of money can already buy them both. Adam, are you serious? Fred couldn't help but confirm with Adam. Yes, in fact, for 40% of the shares, 100. No, 500 gold galleons are actually enough. George even felt that he had asked for too much. Don't underestimate your talent, Fred, George. Adam smiled and put the purse in Fred's hand, then patted the two on the shoulder. From your plan, I can see your passion for this career, and this pure passion is actually the main reason that moved me whether you believe it or not. In fact, I agreed to consider it at the beginning just because I didn't want to reject you in person. Adam was telling the truth. He did think so at the time, but when the twins handed him the plan that took a week, the plan, although very immature but full of sincerity, really moved him. Thinking deeply, after the setback on his side, it is possible that the future Weasley's wizarding wheezes will die directly. For this passion, plus your talent in this area is indeed unmatched, I think it's worth a try. Your plan is indeed very feasible, and there is still a lot of room for development in the market for prank props. Oh. Adam. Before Adam finished speaking, he was hugged by the two again. This time, Adam struggled but didn't break free. Of course we believe. Oh, God, Fred, I feel like crying. George exaggeratedly wiped his eyes a few times to hide the sparkle in his eyes. It took a long time for Adam to be released by the two men. He coughed twice uncomfortably. The two men were much taller than him, and he had to raise his head to breathe freely during the hug just now. Then it's settled, I will prepare a magic contract. No, Adam, we think the content of the contract can be revised. Fred and George looked at each other and showed the same smile. Chapter 34. I don't know when it started, but the physical fitness of Hogwarts students has shown a downward trend. There are always students who feel dizzy, vomit, and have nosebleeds in class. I have to remind you that the professor will not skip these knowledge tests just because you took sick leave and didn't study. After class, Hermione looked disapprovingly at Ron and Harry, who used the quick-acting skipping candy to avoid transfiguration class. What does it matter? The content taught in each transfiguration class is almost the same anyway. Ron said confidently with his hands on his waist. Hermione, we are exhausted during this period. Let us take a break, just this once. Harry was much more sincere. He had to find time to do his homework during this period of time, investigating Nicholas Flamel and training Quidditch. He really couldn't bear it. Ron, who was betrayed by his teammates and had to endure Hermione's death gaze alone, had to bite the bullet and said, "Okay, but I don't have the money to buy new ones except for this trial product. Aren't they your brothers? You have to spend money to buy this thing." Hermione obviously knew who these quick-acting skipping candies came from. That's because this is not their own business. Ron blushed. It's a store they opened in cooperation with Adam. Adam spent 2,000 gold galleons to buy 80% of the shares of Magic Tricks. Otherwise. Ron didn't continue to say what else. I remember they said last time that they were going to find Adam to cooperate in starting a business. Hermione's expression was a little subtle. As a result, they found themselves a boss. 80% of the shares were given away. Did the twins just become workers? Ron shrugged. He didn't really understand. In fact, we prefer to call it risk transfer. Adam is responsible for the funding, venue, packaging and publicity. We only do our most professional things. The management rights are also in our hands. What's the problem? Fred and George happened to pass by with the newly made products and explained to the few people. Hermione turned around and looked at them curiously. Then how do you ensure that the management rights will not be taken away? Of course, I don't doubt Adam's intentions, I'm just curious. Adam is a person who truly understands our great cause and will not do this. But Adam said that in order to avoid some unnecessary troubles, he signed a magic contract with us. Beautiful lady, do you want a candy? Hermione suddenly realized that the magic contract in the magic world is much more effective than the law. Then she looked at the candy in Fred's hand and declined. Forget it, I don't like candy. Well, what a pity. Fred stuffed it into his mouth with his backhand. After waiting for a few seconds, Ron looked at him in confusion. What is the effect of that candy? In fact, it's just a candy. If you insist on saying there's something special about it. Fred and George looked at each other. It tastes like durian. Durian. Harry had never heard of this flavor. A fruit with a unique taste. Some people like it but some people can't accept it, so Adam made candy that only people who eat it can feel it, but it's still unclear whether everyone can accept it. Let's try it here first. George explained to Harry, and took one out of the box in his arms and handed it to him. Do you want to try it? Free trial. Hearing that it's free, even if Harry doesn't need money, he can't help but feel a little moved. After all, it's something made by Adam, how weird can it be? So Harry opened the candy wrapper without any defense, took out the candy inside and threw it into his mouth. The next moment, Harry's face shrank. Oh, so sour, slurp. Harry opened his mouth and saliva flowed down the corners of his mouth, but he had no intention of wiping it off. Too sour. Hey! George was stunned and took a closer look at the candy wrapper in Harry's hand. Although it was yellow, it seemed to be a little lighter than the packaging color of the durian candy. Ah! I seem to have got a sour exploding candy. George was a little embarrassed. This time he was promoting Adam's products and really didn't intend to play a trick on anyone. Explosion. Hermione and Ron were stunned, but Fred and George had already hidden far away. Bang! A puff of smoke floated up, and Hermione and Ron waved their hands to fan the smoke away in a cough, and then they saw Harry with an afro. Puff cough cough, puff cough. Hermione couldn't hold it back for several times, and hurriedly put her bag on her back and stood up. I'm going to do my homework, puff you, cough, chat slowly. Watching Hermione go away, Harry's resentful sighs fell on George. Ahem. I really didn't mean it. How about I let my brother apologize to you? Ron, who was laughing. George put down the box in his hand, took out another sour candy, and stuffed it into Ron's mouth without saying anything. Pushing Ron, who was curled up in a ball due to the sourness, towards Harry, George, and Fred ran away together. If you eat well, remember to patronize Weasley's Wizard Wheezes next time. Bang! The business of Weasley's Wizard Wheezes was quietly spread in Hogwarts. There was no way. After all, the things they sold obviously couldn't be displayed openly like Adam's small shop, where even professors could come to patronize. Although the business style was low-key, due to the high quality of the goods and the close connection between all the naughty students, the twins' quick-acting skipping candy quickly became popular in Hogwarts and received rave reviews. We shouldn't have sold it to that Slytherin bastard. Last time, Marcus, that bastard, tried to secretly bring Filch to catch us. Fred couldn't help but complain at a new product tasting held by Adam. That idiot didn't even think about it. If they didn't have some skills, how could they get away with it until today without being caught by the professor? The professors couldn't have failed to notice the abnormalities of the students, and not everyone who bought the quick-acting skipping candy was tight-lipped enough. In that case, how about you change the quick-acting skipping candy you sell him to diarrhea candy next time? Bernard suggested, touching his chin. But I don't know if this is feasible. That's a really good idea. Fred and George looked at each other and saw the familiar excitement in each other's eyes. We'll try it when we get back. Uther silently moved his chair away from the three people. Chicken soup is here. Just then, Adam came over with a big pot floating behind him. Wow! It smells so good. The new product is chicken soup, what's so new about it? Cologne couldn't help but stand up to take a look, and suddenly froze. In the pot, the light blue soup was rippling, and the chicken skin, which should have been yellow, was also showing a green color that didn't seem like a usable object. Bang! When the pot fell on the round table in the middle, it seemed to fall heavily on everyone's heart. Try it quickly, this is old hen soup. After Adam finished speaking, everyone at the table was silent for a long time, and finally Eugene took the lead in picking up chopsticks and reaching into the pot. What is this? Eugene's pupils were shocked, and he quickly threw the thing he had just picked up back into the pot. Mandela grass. Adam said it as a matter of course. Chapter 35. Everyone looked at each other for a while, and remained silent. When did it start? Maybe it was the last time Adam made that stinky tofu. Adam's dishes began to move in a somewhat weird direction. Now so many people here still believe in Adam and try new dishes every time. It can only be said that the dishes made by Adam are weird, but the taste is indeed desirable. Stinky tofu, silkworm pupae, earthworm jelly, stinky mandarin fish. Although not everyone can accept it, everyone does not think there is anything wrong with the dishes, but they don't like the taste, and hope to encounter food that suits their taste next time. But even Eugene, who always supports it, was silenced by the mandrake that looked like a shrunken baby's head. Ahem, Adam, is there only this dish this time? This kind of art is still too advanced for us. Fred and George gritted their teeth and couldn't make up their minds to stretch out their chopsticks, and finally chose to give up. Yet. Alas, don't be fooled by the appearance of this pot of soup, it tastes great. What's the big difference between mandrake and ginseng? At most, it looks more like a human than ginseng, and the color of the soup is different. Adam took the lead in filling a bowl and eating it nonchalantly. There is only this one. One bowl per person. Otherwise, there will be no new products later. Seeing that Adam ate it first, everyone finally tried it one by one with heroic expressions, and then it was really delicious. What a joke, isn't it just that the color is a little weird and the mandrake is a little scary? How good is the stargazing pie? Use the serving chopsticks to tear the mandrake into pieces, and the remaining color problem is not worth mentioning in front of the taste. Seeing this, Adam nodded with satisfaction. I said it was delicious. Since that day, Adam's menu has gradually added many dishes mixed with magical animals and plants, and the students of Hogwarts have lived a painful and happy life with the new product tasters. Hogwarts students, so strange, taste it, so delicious. Take another look, it's still so strange. But Professor Dumbledore is always very supportive, even durian candy is accepted, and the students around him exclaimed that the old headmaster is worthy of being the greatest wizard of this century, so terrifying. Let's come again next Friday. Adam clapped his hands and set the time for the next new product tasting meeting. No, Adam, there will be a Quidditch game next Friday. Cologne touched his bulging belly. This time, Adam was merciful and made a delicious dish that looked and tasted normal. Hey? Are we going to play Quidditch again? Adam recalled and found that he really didn't remember. That's right. And it's Gryffindor vs. Hufflepuff. Cedric nodded. It's a pity that the referee is Professor Snape. He will definitely not miss any. Give Gryffindor a chance to deduct points. The Weasley twins said in a slightly off-tune aria. During this period, Wood specifically trained them not to commit fouls for this game and not to give Professor Snape any chance. During this period, they had no time to do business, and it was hard to find time to try the new products. Is Professor Snape so scary? Adam was a little confused. To be honest, he seemed to have never seen Professor Snape look scary. Oh. Adam. My Adam. That's because you are not a Gryffindor. Fred rolled his eyes almost to the sky. If your hands are not broken, why don't you write down the knowledge points I just said, hey? George lowered his voice and imitated. Although the voice was not quite the same, the last hey sound was imitated to the essence, which attracted applause. Thank you. Thank you everyone. George stood up and bowed to the surroundings. I have to clarify that Adam's point of view has nothing to do with whether he is a Gryffindor. He has almost the same attitude towards Hufflepuff. Uther applauded and complained. Yes, it feels like the entire Hufflepuff know. I suspect that Adam is the only one in the entire Hogwarts who has not been scolded by Professor Snape. Cologne followed. It's not that exaggerated. Adam recalled. Professor Snape doesn't seem to scold Slytherin much. Is that the point? Adam shrugged. Is Professor Snape terrible? At most, he is a little poisonous. If he does not do well, he will be scolded at most. At most, he will be pressed down. Killing, that's just the beginning? It's not even corporal punishment. Speaking of which, Adam, how did you manage not to be scolded by Professor Snape? Ah, isn't it okay to just do what the professor says? That's true. Bernard complained. 98% of the time when Professor Snape scolds people is because of students' mistakes. What's the other 2%? Cedric looked at him with interest. He's in a bad mood. There was no consensus on Professor Snape. Time passed quickly and the day of the Quidditch match soon arrived. On the day of the match, the Gryffindor team was under visibly great pressure. The only thing that comforted them was that Professor Dumbledore was also in the stands this time. In front of Professor Dumbledore, no matter how excessive Professor Snape was, he wouldn't dare to do it so blatantly, right? However, in fact, Professor Snape proved with his actual actions that he was even more excessive than Gryffindor imagined. Dealy Lily. With the silver whistle of Madame Hooch being blown, the halftime break began. Too much. This is really too much. The roar of Gryffindor could be heard from Hufflepuff. Well. Adam and the others looked at each other. In this situation, even if the Hufflepuff team won, it seemed that there was nothing to be happy about. Look at the bright side, this is probably the cleanest game of the whole season. Adam comforted. Hufflepuff would not take the initiative to commit fouls, and Gryffindor was unexpectedly law-abiding. This situation was indeed very rare and very in line with the aesthetics of Hufflepuff. However, no one was comforted by his words. There is still hope. Cologne lay on the guardrail, looking at the two teams below with concern. Merlin, let them catch the snitch as soon as possible no matter who it is. Before the score difference reaches 150 points, whichever team catches the snitch wins. This is something that Professor Snape cannot change even if he targets Gryffindor, and it is also the fairest point. It seems that old Merlin heard Cologne's prayer, but unfortunately the Hufflepuff team seeker does not have the talent and strength of Harry. Harry caught the snitch shortly after the start of the second half. Everyone was discussing Harry's shocking dive just now, and only Cologne, whose wish came true, was in a dilemma. Although the game ended as he thought it would be fair, Hufflepuff lost. Should he be happy or sad? Chapter 36. After the game, the students of Hogwarts were faced with a long period of study without any surprises. Every day there were only boring classes, no Quidditch games, no festivals, at least for most students. Ah! Adam sighed for the third time today. Adam, what's wrong with you? Cologne came over with a worried look on his face, and other roommates also paid attention to the movement here. It's okay. Adam blurted out, and the next moment he received 4 pairs of unbelieving and disapproving eyes. What do you mean it's okay? You have never acted so depressed. Cologne put his hands on Adam's shoulders from behind and shook him. You are the one who can decisively take action against cockroaches in the bathroom, Adam. Cheer up. Tell us whatever happens. Although I know you care about me, the prefix in front is actually unnecessary. Recalling the experience of that day, Adam's face was full of black lines. Who would have thought that even Eugene, with his thick eyebrows and big eyes, was afraid of cockroaches, and such a small one? But then again, this thing is quite rare in the UK, and I didn't expect that there are cockroaches in Hogwarts. Coming back to his senses from the memory of the roommates screaming in chaos, Adam sighed again. Well, it's almost the new year, but I can't go back. It seems that there is no such thing as asking for leave in Hogwarts, and it is not convenient to go back and forth. New Year. A question mark popped up above Cologne's head. Hasn't January 1st passed long ago? It's almost February now. I'm talking about the Chinese festival, the Spring Festival, the Chinese New Year. Said Adam and sighed sadly. The family cooks together, eats together, puts up Spring Festival couplets, hangs lanterns. Well, it sounds no different from Christmas. Adam immediately turned his head and retorted. It's very different. Okay, very different. Cologne turned Adam's head back. Is this festival special to you? Probably the most important festival of the year. Is that so? Cologne turned his head and looked at his roommates behind him. How about, we celebrate the Spring Festival by ourselves in Hogwarts? Adam blinked, it seemed, a bit of a solution. Since it was a Chinese festival, Adam didn't plan to drag anyone else along, just celebrate it in the dormitory. According to Cologne and the others, they could be considered a family. Yellow and black have always been the main colors of the Hufflepuff dormitory, but on this day they were replaced by red. Red round lanterns were hung on the ceiling like a string of persimmons, and the folded red paper was cut into the word Fu. Once it was pulled apart, it became a long string, spanning from one end of the dormitory to the other. Adam also grabbed Zyok and SPI and put on small clothes in the shape of lion dance for them. Okay, go play. Help the 2 little ones get their wings out of the opening of their clothes, and Adam patted their butts to let them get off his legs. Adam, do you have to stick this upside down too? Adam glanced at the word Shao in Uther's hand and said quickly. No. Only Fu should be stuck upside down. When it came to the part of sticking Spring Festival couplets, Adam was troubled by the red paper in front of him. Should he stick some Spring Festival couplets that are in line with the characteristics of Hogwarts in Hogwarts? But what to write? Upper couplet, Albus Dumbledore. Lower couplet, Gellert Grindelwald. Horizontal banner, a happy marriage for 100 years? I don't know if the old headmaster can read Chinese, so let's not do this. After thinking for a while, Adam picked up the pen and wrote. The dragon hatched, the bird snake broke the silver and bid farewell to the old year. The phoenix was reborn and sniffed the gold to welcome the new year. Good fortune and luck. I can't think of a better one for a while, so I'll stick it on first. Eugene, help me put this on the door, I marked it. Okay. There are classes on New Year's Eve, and most of the preparations are done in advance. In addition, many links in Hogwarts can only be simplified, so it's time for the much-anticipated New Year's Eve dinner. Wow! Cologne, who has become proficient in using chopsticks, picked up a pair of chopsticks and swallowed his saliva. Isn't this table a bit too much? Can we finish it? Adam made a whole table of dishes, including everything flying in the sky, running on the ground, and swimming in the water. There are 4 kinds of staple food alone. Even if he is greedy, he feels that it is a bit difficult to finish this table. This table will be eaten until tomorrow, so make more if you want. Adam also found that it seemed to be a bit too much, but it was not a big problem. Oh, by the way, Eugene, One of these 2 fish should be saved for tomorrow, don't eat it all in one day. Good. Eugene's eyes lit up as he looked at the 2 squirrel mandarin fish. He was still not very good at picking fish bones, and this fish, which was only the head and tail that could not be eaten, was tailor-made for him. It turned out that Cologne still had some misunderstandings about the fighting power of boys of their age. The 5 people had a New Year's Eve dinner from dinner to New Year's Eve, and there was not much left except for the squirrel mandarin fish that was specially left. What? You secretly celebrated the festival without calling us? The next day, everyone in Hufflepuff gradually discovered the red paper posted on the door of Adam's dormitory. After asking curiously, they were immediately hit hard. That's the Chinese festival, Spring Festival, and you don't celebrate it. It doesn't matter, we can eat it. Oh no, we can celebrate it. Ernie covered his chest with a look of confusion. After Adam's popular science, how many people in Hogwarts don't know that Chinese festivals are equal to food? Are there any left? Cedric was very concise and went straight to the point. No, the last squirrel mandarin fish was eaten for breakfast today. Cologne spread his hands. Okay. Are you so interested in Chinese festivals? Adam touched his chin. Yes, yes. A group of people nodded. There are indeed a few Chinese festivals after that. There are more festivals in the first half of the year, but... Amid the expectant eyes of everyone, Adam opened his mouth and uttered extremely cold words. But, do you still remember the year-end exams that are not far away from us? Yes, as students, they obviously have a hurdle that they cannot escape, that is, exams. Although Hogwarts only has 1 exam per school year, it is also because of this that many young wizards will find out at this time that they don't seem to have learned much in a year. Many young wizards find that they have forgotten everything they have learned this year, and when they review, they find that the knowledge they were once familiar with is now so unfamiliar. This is when the caring professors take action. They use homework to force knowledge points into the minds of young wizards. Ah, it's too late. The feather pen in Cologne's hand is so fast that it almost flies up, and his face is about to collapse. Eugene. Bernard. Uther. Help. Why is there no Adam? Because Adam's homework is different from theirs. I said that there is a lot of homework this time, so you don't have to wait until the last day. Uther reluctantly put the 3 people's homework in front of him. You didn't say this is a bit much, twice as much as last weekend. You'd better hurry up and finish it if you have the time. Adam reminded him and took out the letter he received during dinner from his bag. It was sent by his grandmother. It was also the first reply from his grandmother after he wrote to her to ask about Nicholas Flamel. Chapter 37. Dear Adam, please forgive my grandmother for taking so long to reply to you. After reading your letter, I hesitated for a long time, and finally made up my mind to write these words after communicating with Mr. and Mrs. Flamel. Before telling you everything, I want to affirm your wisdom and sharpness. You can find the Philosopher's Stone through a name that is several centuries away from you, which surprised Mr. and Mrs. Flamel. I am proud of you, dear. Back to the topic, you should know that they are French and come from the same land as your grandmother, that is, me. In fact, my great-grandfather is the great-great-grandson of Mrs. Flamel's younger brother. I know that you may think that this kinship is too distant after reading this, and I think so too. The protagonists of some interesting stories they mentioned when I was a child are already ancestors so distant that it is difficult to trace them. We, the descendants, should not disturb the secluded life of our ancestors, so our family has never had any contact with Mr. and Mrs. Flamel until you mentioned that bad premonition before. After reading the first piece of letter paper, Adam was a little shocked. Nicholas Flamel is actually his ancestor? Oh, no, his ancestor is Nicholas Flamel's wife's brother. He is still a relative of Mrs. Flamel, but he can only be said to have some relationship with Nicholas Flamel, but not much, but barely. Continue reading. Grandma Emma tells everything about their family. There is nothing to say in detail, just a detailed review of their family's interactions with the Flamel couple over the years. As Grandma Emma said, it is basically the story of ancestors that are too far away to trace, and the more you go down, the less intersections there are. What Adam cares about is that at the end of the letter, Grandma Emma said that Nicholas Flamel invited him to visit their home again during the holidays. Although he doesn't know why, Adam himself also wants to find Nicholas Flamel again. After all, if nothing unexpected happens, the Philosopher's Stone will be destroyed this semester, and the Flamel couple will end their lives of more than 600 years. The door key given by Nicholas Flamel did provide him with an effective way to escape at that time, although he didn't need it very much now. Later, Professor Dumbledore's guidance to him and his permission to frequently visit Fawkes were also due to Nicholas Flamel. He should at least go and see them for the last time, or if they still want to continue living. He has quite a lot of Philosopher's Stones here. The weather is getting hotter day by day, and the exam date is approaching day by day, causing the students to become more and more irritable. For Adam, the approaching exam is not a terrible thing. As the weather warms up, he has more energy to review the problems encountered in a year of study after completing the tree card magic training. Professor McGonagall, where will the objects cast the vanishing spell go? Adam asked a question he had been curious about for a long time during after-school tutoring. Good question, in fact, no one knows. Professor McGonagall said. Since the invention of this spell, there has never been a precedent for something that has been cast a vanishing spell and has never appeared in front of people again. Even wizards who can apparate. Professor McGonagall was silent for a moment and looked at Adam deeply. My advice is that it is best not to cast a vanishing spell on wizards. Professor, I know, this spell takes a little time to take effect and this time is enough for the other party to react and fight back. Adam nodded. I mean, can we use this or similar methods to explore where the vanishing spell leads to? Professor McGonagall hesitated for a moment, not knowing whether to clarify that she did not mean what Adam understood or to explore the question Adam asked at the end. You can tell me what you think. For example, Phoenix, Fawkes's apparition should not be restricted by the anti-apparition charm. Under Professor McGonagall's subtle gaze, Adam quickly added. Of course, the apparition of house elves seems to be able to be performed smoothly in places with anti-apparition, such as Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall opened her mouth and tried to say something to no avail. After taking a few deep breaths, she barely sorted out her thoughts. Adam, maybe I used the wrong words when I was teaching you before. We don't have to explore the underlying principles of all spells. There is nothing wrong with some magic just staying at the level of application, right? So please let your poor transfiguration professor go. Professor McGonagall looked at Adam and tried her best to convey the above information with her eyes. Okay, let's talk about the application of the transfiguration charm. Adam sighed, and then turned a page of his notes when Professor McGonagall breathed a sigh of relief. So, about the use of uncertainty caused by lack of concentration during transformation, to transform part of the opponent's limbs into aliens and thus make the opponent lose their combat ability. Professor McGonagall. At this moment, Professor McGonagall's silence was deafening. Professor McGonagall. I think you have learned the basics of transfiguration spells. Professor McGonagall. Remember what you wanted to ask me after class last time. Professor McGonagall. Ah, it's animagus, how about we discuss this? Professor McGonagall jumped onto the table and turned into an American short-hair cat. Okay, Professor McGonagall. Adam put down his notes and stretched out his hands with a pious expression. There is always a time to try out what you guessed, but the opportunity to pet a cat is not often available. Don't think wrongly. Adam certainly couldn't have any improper thoughts about Professor McGonagall. After personally confirming that there was no difference between the animals transformed by animagus and normal animals, Adam was once again shocked by the unreasonableness of the wizard's spell. To be honest, it is not without benefits to know the facts but not the reasons. At least, almost no magician would study this kind of controllable self-transformation that can retain consciousness. Which magician with this ability would have the need to turn himself into an ordinary animal? After all, the most important ability of animagus is infiltration, and the wizards who can do this need to infiltrate targets, which are usually not fooled by animagus. In addition, some magic involving time is also the same. Those who can interfere with time are all legendary great magicians, such as Colorado, but in the wizarding world, there are a lot of time converters in the Ministry of Magic. Thinking of the two magic circles in the time card and the shadow card that make people dizzy at a glance, Adam deeply felt the happiness of wizards who know the facts but don't know the reasons. I should apply for a time converter to study it, and then it would be more reliable to study the magic of time cards and halberd cards. As for now, animagus, an interesting subject, I hope I can make progress before the end of year exam. Due to his patroness image, Adam is very interested in his animagus. Chapter 38. Adam's practice of animagus went quite smoothly as expected. After all, the biggest difficulty in practicing animagus lies in the strict requirements for the weather during the practice. For all wizards who practiced this magic before, this was purely a matter of luck. But Adam had the Clow cards. Relying on the cloud card and the storm card, Adam created a cloudless full moon and a storm the next day. Amid the voices of countless little wizards rushing back to the castle cursing, Adam welcomed his own animagus transformation. Amato, animato, animagus. Pointing the tip of the wand at his heart, after reciting the spell, Adam drank a mouthful of blood-red potion. The beating of the second heart sounded, and became deafening in a few seconds, and at the same time, the intense pain seemed to sweep Adam's whole body from the inside of the cell. Adam, is it really okay? Practicing this kind of random magic. Xiao Ke watched Adam's body begin to tremble, and couldn't help but scratch the grass on the ground with his claws in annoyance, controlling the Li card to be ready to attack at any time. Sibi didn't answer, but just stared at Adam quietly. At this time, the two of them did not maintain their usual small size that was more cute than energy-saving, but were in their original postures. The winged lion and the leopard with butterfly wings were quite intimidating in terms of visual effects alone. As the guardian beasts of the sealed book, Xiao Ke and Sibi's abilities are not simply to guide Adam to learn the magic on the cloud cards. With Adam's permission, they, representing the sun and the moon, respectively control the use rights of half of the cloud cards in the sealed book. Even if they also need to mobilize Adam's magic power when using the cloud cards, Adam's current magic power is enough to deal with any troubles that may be encountered in the process of practicing animagus. Under the gaze of the sealed beasts, Adam's body stopped trembling, and then twisted into a familiar look, a Maine Coon cat. The vertical pupils turned into round pupils in an instant. Xiao Ke and Sibi walked forward and looked down at the fur ball on the grass in front of them. Adam, who was still getting used to his new body, raised his head. The cat on the left had a big face, and the cat on the right had a big face. He couldn't help but speak. Meow. Ah, I forgot that I couldn't speak in the animagus state. Are you, really Adam? Xiao Ke tentatively stretched out his paw, and the Maine Coon on the ground followed suit and high-fived Xiao Ke. The paws of the big cats suddenly became miniature in front of the real big cats. Meow. Meow. Hiss. Yes. After adjusting the magic of the sound card, Adam finally turned the cat's cry into human language. After saying that, Adam couldn't help but turn his head, using the cat's innate flexibility to bury his face in the soft fur on his waist and abdomen and take a deep breath. God, my animagus is as good as expected. God knows how excited Adam was when he found out that his patroness was a Maine Coon cat while practicing the patroness charm. Unfortunately, the patroness was illusory and could not be touched at all. Now, Adam finally got what he wanted. Until the end of year exam, Adam was immersed in the animagus form of sucking himself and couldn't extricate himself, especially when he pulled Xiao Ke and SPI together. The three furry things rolled into a ball was a heavenly enjoyment for a fur lover, not to mention that one of them was himself. So much so that when Adam entered the examination room, he still had an intoxicated smile on his face, and Professor Flitwick obviously understood it as Adam's confidence. I know this isn't that hard for you, but I hope to see some surprises. With a smile and a wink at the top student, Professor Flitwick told the exam questions for this year. See this pair? Just let it tap dance across the desk. The dance spell itself is not hard, but it obviously requires a little extra control to make the pair dance, and it also needs to keep jumping from one end of the desk to the other. But this is obviously a small problem for Adam. With a good mood, he waved his wand briskly, and a plate of pairs held hands and tap danced side by side on the desk to start the performance, and a set of teapots in the corner of the desk provided accompaniment for them. After a section of river dance, the pair bowed to everyone to take a bow, and Professor Flitwick gave a very satisfied applause and a big "Oh, outstanding." The transfiguration test was to turn a mouse into a snuff bottle. The snuff bottle that Adam turned into was soft and delicate, with a pattern of 4 cats swatting butterflies. In the corner, there was a Maine Coon cat taking a nap, and a butterfly resting on the tip of the cat's nose. Professor McGonagall looked at the snuff bottle for a long time, and she felt that she really regretted not being able to spend money to buy it. Then after that, he also put an O in the grade column. As the exams ended, the little wizards had different moods, and their final grades could almost be seen from everyone's expressions. It seems that everyone's grades are good. After taking the History of Magic exam, they returned to the dormitory. The atmosphere was peaceful. Obviously, Adam's dormitory was full of students who at least didn't have to worry about failing. The only thing that makes me a little unsure is the history of magic. After all, I didn't listen much in class, and I don't know if I made any mistakes in the previous accelerated recitation. But most of them should be correct, and at least I filled them up. Cologne raised his head proudly with his hands on his waist. Although he was a little embarrassed when he was making up his homework, he was not afraid of grades. From now on, it will be a holiday until the results come out. What do you think? Bernard looked around curiously. Fishing. Eugene took out a fishing tackle bag from somewhere. Ever since the Black Lake thawed, he had been thinking about going fishing, but his grades were not good enough to make him extremely confident in himself, so he finally endured until the end of the exam. I don't know. Let's make up for the lack of sleep these days. Uther stretched out on the sofa, looking ready to fall asleep at any time. Are you all so relaxed? The Quidditch game hasn't ended yet, no one is going to watch the training together. Cologne looked at Bernard and Adam. Well, I plan to take a good look around Hogwarts while I have nothing to do. Bernard's eyes flickered as he looked at Adam. Adam, what about you? Me? Adam squinted his eyes, holding Xiao Ke with his left hand and Sibi with his right hand, his fingers tucked into the soft fur on the two little bellies' abdomens. I haven't decided yet, maybe I'll stay in the dormitory like Uther. Then he took a nap with Xiao Ke and Sibi. Anyway, he has been studying for a year, so what's wrong with just enjoying himself these few days? Ahem, since you haven't decided yet. Bernard coughed and moved closer to Adam. Are you interested in going on an adventure with me? Chapter 39. Explore. Adam opened his eyes and frowned at Bernard. You mean? This is a huge and ancient magic castle. During our classes, we have only explored less than half of its area, or even less. Aren't you curious about other areas? Bernard's eyes sparkled as he spoke. You also said that this is an ancient castle. Adam sighed. Those places we don't go to in class are probably not visited by anyone in normal times. Those places may not have been visited for hundreds of years, and there are piles of unused garbage everywhere, and there may be rats and cockroaches. Bernard was slightly hit by the fantasy constructed by Adam's words, but this did not change his mind. But it may not be all garbage, right? Think about it, from these dilapidated rooms and secret passages, we found treasures left by ancient wizards. In fact, if treasures left by ancient wizards are really found, then there is a high probability that they are cursed, believe me. As a descendant of the pharaoh, Uther naturally has a layer of credibility when talking about this topic. So there is really a curse on the pharaoh's treasure. Cologne looked at him curiously and got a subtle smile. Well, I didn't mention it before because I felt it was a bit offensive, but now that we're talking about this topic. Adam couldn't help but look at Uther. What do you think of the coffins and mummies of the pharaohs in the museum? What do you think? Just treat them as cultural relics after all. The afterlife and the underworld are just a myth that no one knows whether it is true or false. Uther shrugged. In fact, although it hurts our face, it's not all bad for us. That's all I can say. Is that so? Although he was a little confused about what Uther meant, Adam just nodded and stopped asking questions since he said so. Wait, no one is interested in my proposal just now. Bernard was still a little unwilling. Give up. Hogwarts has never lacked students with a spirit of exploration. Those areas that can be freely entered obviously cannot have what you are looking for. In other words, those prohibited areas have it. Facing 4 pairs of eyes, Bernard shrugged innocently. I just said that casually. Adam sighed. Where do you want to go? Bernard frowned and thought for a long time. It can be seen that he had not thought deeply about this issue before. He just wanted to do it. I remember when the school started, Professor Dumbledore warned us not to go to some places. The corridor on the 4th floor. Adam's heart twitched. He was just thinking about petting the cat. Now you want to drag me to PK with Voldemort in person. Isn't it a bit too exciting? I think it's better to go to the Forbidden Forest. Without showing any abnormality on the surface, Adam stroked the cat and said. I heard there are many magical animals and plants in it, even unicorns and centaurs. I want to go and see. Are you interested in magical animals, Adam? Cologne looked at Adam and suggested happily. Why don't you come to my house during the holidays? I'll take you to see several farms in our family, where there are many magical animals. Oh? For example? Adam's eyes lit up slightly. For example, the moon beast, the silent bird, the billywig worm. Just when Adam was a little disappointed, he heard Cologne say. And the sniff. I will definitely visit your house if I have the chance. Adam sat up and looked at Cologne and nodded firmly. Okay. Is anyone interested in the Sphinx? Uther stroked his chin and suggested. Why don't we find an opportunity to come to Egypt together? Sounds good. But if you want to go abroad, you should go with your family, right? Uther, how do we contact each other after you return to Egypt? Usanel. Maybe we can go through the Department of International Magical Cooperation. After everyone had discussed it, Bernard raised his hand weakly and asked. So, are we still going to the Forbidden Forest? Go. Adam sighed, otherwise he was really afraid that Bernard would get in front of Voldemort and get bitten by him. That thing can't be dealt with by a few guns or white phosphorus grenades. Even if it was such an exciting thing to go to the Forbidden Forest, no one planned to get up early the next day after the exam, including Bernard, who was quite interested in this matter. Germany. So, after eating breakfast and lunch together, the 5 people in the dormitory gathered at the entrance of the Forbidden Forest. Speaking of which, if Cologne felt that it was boring to watch the training alone, it would be fine if he followed, but why did you come too? Adam looked at someone who claimed to catch up on sleep and someone who was going fishing. After all, it is the dark forest of Hogwarts. After hearing what you said yesterday, I was also quite interested. Uther took out his wand with Egyptian-style decorations, with curiosity on his face. And I went to bed too early last night and slept until just now. Now I can't sleep anymore. Why don't I get up and move around? Do you think we will be attacked? Why do you look like a potential dangerous person? Looking at Uther, who was eager to try, Adam felt a lot of complaints. I heard that the Forbidden Forest is very dangerous. I am worried about you. Eugene also held the wand. His height and resolute face, the most outstanding among the 5, all revealed a reassuring atmosphere. If Adam had not seen him throw everything at hand at cockroaches when he saw them in the bathroom incident, and at the same time look like he wanted to fly, the sense of security brought by Eugene would have a better effect on him. Is this the first collective action of our dormitory? Cologne looked very excited and waved his wand. I can already imagine the scene of everyone fighting the monsters in the Forbidden Forest together. Ahem, it's better not to happen, that kind of thing. Adam couldn't help but say. Anyway, it's a good thing for everyone to act together, at least we can take care of each other. Our first step is to avoid the sight of the gamekeeper, that is, the half-giant who brought us to Hogwarts at the beginning of the school year. Bernard cast a disillusionment charm on himself very skillfully, and his body immediately merged with the surrounding environment like a chameleon, and no clues could be found without careful observation. Does anyone need help? I know the disillusionment charm. Uther said and cast a disillusionment charm on himself. Just when Cologne and Eugene were helplessly planning to ask the 2 for help, Adam suddenly stretched out his hand, and a magic wand taller than his appeared out of thin air. Ahem, brothers, I want to take this opportunity to clarify a misunderstanding with you. I originally wanted to get along with everyone as an ordinary person, fearing to scare everyone, but after getting to know them, I found that everyone's identity and background were more outrageous than the other. In this case, he didn't pretend anymore, he showed his cards. He is the magic boy Kuro. The magician Kaguya. Chapter 40. Of course, Adam couldn't tell everything about Clow Reed. He just explained that his parents were indeed ordinary people, but not muggles but squibs. At the same time, he only knew that his grandparents were not ordinary people after receiving the letter from Hogwarts. Although he was misunderstood before, he had never found a good opportunity to clarify. In addition, regarding the Clow cards, Adam explained that it was a family inheritance from China, and Uther accepted it quickly and well. It seems that Egypt probably has a similar heritage to what Adam made up. So I'm the only one in the dormitory who is a real ordinary person. Bernard was a little disappointed, and Adam comforted him. Actually, there is no difference between my background and that of ordinary people. I came into contact with the wizarding world after I was 11 years old. That's true. But Adam, you can adapt to the life of a wizard so quickly, it must be related to blood, right? This thing should be related to Adam's personality. Can blood really affect this kind of thing? Okay, now the more important thing is to make us invisible, right? Cologne helplessly interrupted the communication between the 2 invisible people. So Adam, you choose to clarify now, because you have a better way. Eugene looked at the wand in Adam's hand. You are right. Adam held the wand of darkness in one hand and a Clow card with 2 fingers in the other hand. There were no figures or animals on the card, but a scene similar to that seen in a kaleidoscope, with a gem in the center, the Clow card called the illusion card, which could create any illusion. When no one was controlling it, it usually showed what people feared the most. The seal is lifted. The spike of the sun hit the card, and a gem broke away from it and floated above the wand of darkness. At the same time, the kaleidoscope pattern that seemed to change all the time spread out from the claw card as the center, wrapping everyone in it and slowly disappearing. Okay. Adam still held the wand of darkness in his hand, motioning Eugene and Cologne to look over. When the illusion card takes effect, you can see an illusion of a gem floating above my magic wand. When the gem disappears, it means that I have lifted the magic of the illusion card. Okay. After getting ready, Bernard volunteered to walk in the first place, Cologne walked in the second place, Adam and Uther followed behind the two, and Eugene was responsible for the rear. It does look like a very primitive forest. There are many magical plants and animals living here. Cologne touched a liquid grass at his feet. The excrement of the moon beast. It seems that we will encounter some cute little animals in the forbidden forest at night. At the same time, the probability of encountering danger will be higher, right? Uther's eyes scanned the surroundings vigilantly, but there was not much tension in his words. Even in Egypt, where yellow sand is everywhere, most of the creatures that are active during the day and can pose a threat to wizards are extremely large and difficult to hide, but those that are active at night are different. Under the cover of night, even animals that are less than the size of a palm can easily kill a wizard with venom and other means. Look! There are traces ahead. Cologne's eyes lit up and he quickened his pace to move forward. After the five of them arrived at the place Cologne mentioned, Adam looked at Cologne helplessly as he squatted on the ground and studied a trace carefully. Look! This trace is very wide, it must be left by some huge magical animal such as an ermine, or something else. After hesitating for a while, Adam reminded. Is it possible that our half-giant gamekeepers can also leave similar traces? And this trace leads directly to the outside of the Forbidden Forest, and this place is so close to the edge of the Forbidden Forest, how could a huge magical animal run here to move around? Hey! Cologne was stunned, and restored Hagrid's body shape in his mind, and compared it with the traces here, a perfect match. Hee, I just made a random guess. Continue to walk into the Forbidden Forest. Perhaps because it was afternoon, they did not find many magical animals, only a group of deer. However, the deer found them from a distance, looked in their direction, and ran away. Should I also erase the noise we made? Adam's fingertips turned over a silence card, on which was a tall woman with a high collar covering her mouth and nose. No, the noise we made is also protecting us in a sense. Uther stopped him. Some very powerful magical animals have intelligence that is not inferior to humans. After all, this belongs to Hogwarts. If they find us, they might well choose to leave on their own initiative. Okay. Adam followed Uther's advice, but he didn't think these animals would take the initiative to avoid humans. There was no surprise, and Bernard couldn't help but say. Are we just going forward without a goal? He wanted to explore the Forbidden Forest, but the current situation seemed to be a little different from what he imagined. The team stopped at this time, and the five people walked together. Drink some water and take a rest. Adam conjured up 5 cups and some boiled water in the cups. Bernard is right, we should at least have a goal. Cologne was a little tired, and took the water to find a big tree with a root raised on the ground and sat down, looking around casually, hoping to find some clues that could guide the direction. Suddenly, Cologne's pupils shrank suddenly, and he pointed in a direction. What is that? The slightly trembling and even broken exclamation made Adam and the others look in that direction immediately, but they found nothing. Look from this side. Adam walked to Cologne's side, squatted down and looked in the direction of Cologne's finger, and then he saw the culprit that made Cologne so out of control, a spider web. A spider web that was tied between the trunks of 2 trees, spanning more than 10 meters, with 2 parallel spider silks even as wide as a palm. What kind of web is this? A spider. Uther's face looked a little ugly. Are the spiders in your country so well fed? If it was just a large spider web, it would be fine, but the intervals between the spider silks were as wide as a palm, which meant that prey that was about the same size as a palm was not even on the menu of this spider. I don't know. Cologne swallowed his saliva. Obviously, their family's farm would not raise such a fierce and magical animal. At this time, Bernard suddenly started to walk towards the spider web. Hey! What do you want to do? Seeing Bernard's movements, Eugene quickly grabbed him. Aren't you curious? Looking at Bernard's somewhat excited expression, Eugene frowned. Aren't you afraid? What are you afraid of? It's just a spider, at most it's a little bigger. Bernard looked at Eugene in confusion, took out the loaded gun and loaded it. If you tell me that bullets can't penetrate dragon skin, I'll believe it, but a spider can't be bulletproof, right? Chapter 41. You're right, Bernard. Spiders are unlikely to be bulletproof. Eugene, or the wizards in general, had no idea about the power of bullets, but Adam knew. But you also have to consider the size difference between bullets and spiders. A bullet may not kill the big guy directly, but may make it crazy. When Bernard took out the white phosphorus grenade to refute, Adam said again. As far as I know, the only spider that can have such a size is a magical animal called the eight-eyed giant spider, which can usually grow to 15 feet tall. Bernard was silent, silently estimating how high 15 feet is in his mind. Moreover, this kind of animal usually lives in groups. A small group has dozens or hundreds of them, and a large group may have tens of thousands of them. Given the ecological conditions of the Forbidden Forest. Bernard put away the white phosphorus grenade. Ahem, why don't we turn around? This direction seems a bit dangerous. Uther, Cologne, and Eugene all nodded in agreement. As the saying goes, if you know there are tigers in the mountains, don't go there. There is no reason to rush forward when you know there are a lot of dangerous creatures ahead. What's the point? However, after walking a distance, Adam suddenly called out to the others. Wait a minute. Facing the puzzled eyes of the crowd, Adam sighed. It seems that we found out too late. After Adam finished speaking, there was silence all around. There was no sound of their footsteps before, and the rustling sounds coming from all directions suddenly became clear. We were discovered. Maybe we were discovered a long time ago, maybe we touched a spider silk? Or maybe it was just because we broke into their territory and were regarded as prey. A 15-foot tall spider, think about it, it is impossible for it to just lie on the spider web and wait for food to come to the door. Everyone's face was not very good, and they all clenched their wands. Spiders should be afraid of fire, right? Cologne suggested. But setting fire in the Forbidden Forest, what if the fire spreads? It's better than losing your life. Setting fire makes too much noise, and the holiday is coming soon. Do you want to put me in solitary confinement? Adam clenched the dark staff and looked around. Leave it to me. The huge magic circle unfolded on the ground with Adam's feet as the center, but it was not discovered because of the cover of humus. Only the eight-eyed giant spiders ambushing in the dark seemed to sense the danger, and the rustling footsteps were confused for a moment. This is the first time I try this kind of thing. If it doesn't work, I'll have to ask the tree to do it myself. Adam waved the dark staff in his hand, and the magic power poured into the magic circle under his feet like a tide, and poured into the tall trees around. Under the astonished gaze of Cologne and the other three, the surrounding trees suddenly moved like animals, swaying their branches one by one, and the roots buried deep underground drove the soil to roll continuously as they grew wildly, spreading towards the distance. The next moment, creepy roars came from all directions. Are those all eight-eyed giant spiders? Cologne's face turned pale. What kind of magic is this? Uther's face also turned pale, but he still looked at Adam in surprise. Tree cards can manipulate trees. Adam looked serious. There were many more eight-eyed giant spiders around than he had imagined. It was the first time for him to manipulate multiple trees at the same time, not to mention such a large number. This was not an easy task for him. The roars were getting closer and closer. The trees in the Forbidden Forest were so tall that they almost completely blocked the sunlight above, so even in the afternoon they could only vaguely see many fangs and claws behind the trees. Maybe it was the tree roots that moved under Adam's magic, or maybe it was the legs of the eight-eyed giant spider, but Cologne and the others hoped it was the former. Be careful. Suddenly a spider climbed up the tree, then jumped along the trunk several times and came not far in front of them, and pounced on them. Armor protection. Thunder explosion. Cologne threw an armor spell after a scream, but Uther behind him threw a blasting spell at the big spider with a sullen face, and the head of the eight-eyed giant spider, which was about the size of a basketball, was blown to pieces in the fire. There are many more big spiders than I thought. Adam frowned and gritted his teeth. Hundreds? Thousands? Adam was not sure, he only knew that the range of the tree sign was full of eight-eyed giant spiders. Did they unknowingly walk to the vicinity of the eight-eyed giant spider's nest? Adam, don't force yourself too much. Take a deep breath. After calming his heartbeat, Uther looked around. You don't have to stop all of them. You can let some of them come over. Just tell me the direction. I can handle one or two of them. I can help too. Eugene, who was staring at another direction and didn't react, said in a deep voice. Because of my parents, I know a little self-defense spell. Bernard's face turned pale when he saw this scene, and he tightened the white phosphorus grenade in his pocket. The unforgivable curse is the worst spell, but not the most powerful spell. Adam also paid some attention to the surroundings while controlling the trees. He was relieved to see that the spiders were solved. He discovered Bernard's situation, took a half step back and came to his ear and said, "Wizards can exist in this world until now not only by being isolated from the world, don't be too superstitious about the power of technology." Bernard glanced at Adam and nodded. "East." Adam suddenly reminded. "Which direction is east?" "Piece to pieces." Eugene used a spell to smash half of the Acromanthus body, and then used 2 more pieces to kill the Acromanthus that lost its balance. Looking at the still confused Cologne, Uther, who also couldn't tell the directions without a reference, shook his head. Those who are capable of dealing with the Acromanthus should be responsible for a fixed direction, so that Adam can remind them. "Okay." Eugene nodded. "I know the freezing spell, which should be able to delay the Acromanthus." Cologne's pale face flushed a few times. He thought it was great for a freshman to have this ability, but looking at the others. "That's enough, and you have the armor spell to block it." "I can also deal with the Acromanthus." Bernard gritted his teeth and said. "You?" Uther glanced at him. "Do you have enough bullets?" "Not relying on bullets." Bernard had put away his gun and held the magic wand in his hand. "Trust me, I won't joke with my life." "Okay." Uther nodded. So the 5 people formed a formation with Uther, Eugene, Cologne, and Bernard facing one direction each, surrounding Adam in the middle. "How many 8-eyed giant spiders can you deal with at once?" Adam thought about it and had an idea. At present, his magic power cannot use the light cards, dark cards, and the 4 elements of earth, water, wind and fire, which are the upper-level claw cards, but there is no problem using other cards. And these claw cards lack the means of group killing against large targets. If they can be dispersed. Chapter 42. 3 8-eyed giant spiders broke through the defense line of the trees from 2 directions and were quickly dealt with by Uther and Eugene. It was obvious that Adam had deliberately relaxed some of the defenses according to the strength of several people, and put more energy on other places. Cologne and Bernard were a little unwilling, but now was not the time to show off, and Adam would not let 2 8-eyed giant spiders break through the defense line to prove himself to them because of their unwillingness. It seemed that they were shocked by the fate of their previous companions, and the attack of the 8-eyed giant spiders slowed down a little, and everyone had time to respond to Adam. "At most, I can kill more than 10 or 20 at a time, but there are probably only 3 or 4 chances, and then I can only deal with 2 or 3. Eugene held the wand and reached into his pocket with the other hand. "Normally, I can deal with 3 or 4 at a time, and more or less in special cases, but it will only be effective for a while." Uther took a deep breath, stretched out his hand and pulled out his necklace from his chest and held it in his palm. Just like Bernard would bring guns and grenades, they naturally brought all the guys who could defend themselves before coming to the Forbidden Forest. Judging from the current situation, this decision is undoubtedly correct. Cologne thought for a while. 2. No, 1. He was actually confident that he could deal with 2, but in order to prevent accidents that would drag down others, he still reduced it to 1 to ensure that everything was safe. 1. Bernard answered without hesitation. Although they were curious about where his confidence came from, others did not doubt his answer. "Enough." Adam nodded. The situation was much better than he expected. It's not a solution to keep dragging it on like this. There are at least hundreds of 8-eyed giant spiders outside. Hearing this news, everyone's face looked a little ugly. "Have all these ghosts gathered here? I'm afraid we have walked into their lair. Maybe when we walked in this direction before, there were many 8-eyed giant spiders staring at us in the dark." Bernard's speculation made everyone feel cold, and Uther held his wand tighter. "It's too late to say this now, Adam, tell me what you think." "I can deal with them, but it will take some time." "How long?" Eugene was concise. "A while, about 3 or 4 seconds." "Why not just use it? I can't maintain magic in these few seconds, and now these trees outside are dragging at least hundreds of 8-eyed giant spiders." Adam listened to the sound of people gasping for air around him and continued. I will control the trees to kill the 8-eyed giant spiders and shock them, and then collapse to form a barrier, but there will definitely be 8-eyed giant spiders breaking through, estimated to be at least 10, if they break through to our front. I know, leave it to us. Uther said with a smile. If it doesn't work, we can set it on fire. Cologne is right. It's better to be locked up than to lose your life. The key is, can such a big spider really be driven away by fire? I know the fiery curse. Cologne's doubts were resolved by Uther's words, and the four looked at Adam. Just do it. Okay. Adam closed his eyes, tried his best to control the trees, and then suddenly opened his eyes. Get ready. The tail of the dark staff hit the ground, and the trees on all sides rioted. Boom. Accompanied by a series of roars, the trees that suddenly expanded a circle collapsed neatly, causing the ground to shake slightly. The sound of the 8-eyed giant spider paused, and then it was quiet for a moment. 3 huge black shadows climbed up the barrier formed by the trees and flew towards everyone. Fortunately, there were only 3 of them. Just as the 4 were thinking this, 2 more shadows could not help but climb over the barrier, followed by 4 more. We must deal with them as soon as possible, otherwise the 8-eyed giant spiders behind us will rush up together if they see nothing is wrong. This thought appeared in the minds of the 4 people at the same time, and each of them raised their wands. Smash to pieces. Thunder explosion. Ice freeze. Heart piercing. And Adam did not dare to delay at all. Remove the seal. The dark staff hit the tree card, and countless vines and branches gushed out from the card. The tree card elf, whose body was only covered by leaves, slowly opened its eyes under the cover of countless greenery and looked at Adam gently. No time to say more, quickly use your magic to surround these spiders. Adam has already touched the claw card. The card is a maze card, which can create a large-scale maze. First, use the tree cards to circle the 8-eyed giant spiders into a range, then use the maze to put them in, and use these 2 claw cards to trap the 8-eyed giant spiders in the maze. Can take the opportunity to escape. The tree card reached out and gently grasped Adam's hand. No need to be so troublesome. Although the tree card is not a high-level claw card, it is also a strong one among the claw cards and has the ability to speak. She looked at the group of spiders that rushed over one after another, and a hint of fierceness flashed in her eyes. Get rid of them all. The tree card did not control the surrounding trees. Adam felt that his magic power was mobilized by the tree card, and then a sapling broke out of the ground, and in a blink of an eye it grew to a point that 4 or 5 people could not hold together. Seeing the not-round trunk and the aerial roots hanging from the tree, Adam was stunned. Banyan tree. Before Adam could react, the tree card had already controlled the grown banyan tree to launch an attack. Countless aerial roots flew towards the 8-eyed giant spiders. The soft and slender aerial roots were far more flexible than the tree roots. The sharp front end made by magic directly pierced into the bodies of the dozen 8-eyed giant spiders. The next moment, roots, branches, countless indistinguishable structures emerged from the eyes, spinnerets or joints of the 8-eyed giant spider, and soon it became a small banyan tree, then took root in the soil and grew rapidly. So the tree card had more controllable aerial roots. After the tree card took over the battlefield, the people who were finally able to relax and free their hands had just taken a few breaths, and their hair stood on end when they saw this scene. Not long after, the tree card finally stopped and looked at Adam. They ran far away. If you chase them, your magic power will be too much. Adam's face was pale. That's enough. In fact, even if he didn't chase them, this consumption level could be said to be a little beyond Adam's expectations, and of course the power of the tree card also exceeded his expectations. Looking at the spectacular scene of a single tree forming a forest in front of him, Adam opened his mouth and found that he couldn't think of anything to say for a while. Protect yourself well, and come to me next time you are in danger. The tree card touched Adam's cheek and returned to the claw cards amid the dancing of vines and branches. What was that just now? Uther spoke with some difficulty. It's the elves in the claw cards. Adam looked at the tree card in his hand. Each claw card has its own life. They are all living magic itself, so the claw cards can act on their own and exert extremely powerful power. Oh! Uther nodded, and said nothing more in front of the claw cards, and then suddenly seemed to remember something, and looked at Bernard with a complicated expression. Chapter 43. Following Uther's move, Eugene and Colin also looked at Bernard. Apparently, there was more than one blind student who noticed Hwadian in the chaos. Bernard, you just... Yes, it was the Cruciatus curse. Bernard admitted this very frankly, looking at his roommates in front of him. Are you going to report me to the Ministry of Magic? In the previous Popular Science, he already knew that casting the unforgivable curse would lead to imprisonment in the wizard prison Azkaban. Everyone was silent for a while. Those who cast the unforgivable curse are unforgivable. Adam, who had put away the tree sign, suddenly spoke. But Bernard just cast the Cruciatus curse to protect us. Wizard's law does not have clauses such as emergency avoidance, but the reason why such laws exist is because people need it, and from the perspective of universal morality, they believe that such behavior should not be punished. Obviously, no one can go out and report Bernard's use of the unforgivable curse to protect everyone. In a moment of silence, Adam spoke first. Why don't we go back first? Although this is deep in the Forbidden Forest, the noise we made is still a bit loud. Agree. Agree. Can I ask why you chose to cast the unforgivable curse in front of us? Adam deliberately postponed the time to take a shower in the evening, and Bernard also tacitly made the same choice. At this time, there were only two of them in the bathroom. Of course, because the topic of discussion was a bit sensitive, Adam also used a silence card to block their voices, so that these words could not reach the ears of a third person, even if it was a portrait, a ghost, or Peeves. It was a matter of life and death at that time, so of course I would use whatever I could. Bernard was foaming on Adam's body sideways. Eugene and Uther both said at the time that they had ways to deal with it, and the situation was far from as dangerous as you said. Adam was not fooled by him. Although you know the unforgivable curse, if you are careful and practice it secretly, you can still conceal it. Why do you want to expose it? Then why did you cover for me before? Bernard turned his head and looked into Adam's eyes. Those who cast the unforgivable curse are unforgivable. You said so yourself. This is not the first time you have seen me cast the unforgivable curse, is it? The last time I cast the Cruciatus curse, it was not for the purpose of self-protection, so why did you turn a blind eye to my behavior that time? Adam. Adam closed his eyes. The last time I saw Bernard cast the Cruciatus curse, it was in an abandoned classroom. Adam grew a few pots of mandrake in the abandoned classroom at the end of the corridor, where the sunlight was good enough. But when passing by a classroom, he found the fluctuation of magic power, and heard the sound of heart-wrenching without opening the door. It was a familiar voice. Without opening the door, Adam stood at the door for a while and continued to move forward. Unexpectedly, Bernard knew it, so. You really did it on purpose. I did it on purpose. It's not difficult to guess your movement trajectory if you observe carefully. Bernard shrugged his shoulders, raised his head and let the hot water flow down, flowing through his eyes, mouth and nose. What do you want to do? Don't you know that it's dangerous to do this? Where is it dangerous? As soon as Bernard opened his mouth, hot water poured into his mouth, making his words a little unclear. Adam made foam and put the soap aside, looking straight at Bernard. Whether it's me or Eugene, if any of us reports to the Ministry of Magic, one flashback will curse you to stay in Azkaban and be neighbors with Dementors for the rest of your life. Do you expect your parents to go to the Wizengamot and sue the Ministry of Magic? Dementors, Wizengamot, I learned new terms again. Bernard. Wipe his face from his chin up, Bernard looked at Adam. Look, I'm fine now, aren't I? Do you think this is funny? Adam looked confused. No, I just want to try and see if our friendship is really that strong. Now, Adam looked at Bernard with a look of concern in addition to incomprehension. Or you should find a mental hospital. Do you know what it's like to be a lawyer, and the child of two lawyers? Bernard's eyes were blank, as if he was lost in memories. Marriage, debt, finance. My parents didn't actually allow me to look at their documents, but as a child, the more you're not allowed to do something, the more interesting it is to do it. So when others were listening to fairy tales, I was exposed to many more real stories in my life. Other children watched princesses and princes live a happy life, but I watched a woman who was betrayed in love and stored the body of a scumbag in the freezer. Adam swallowed his saliva. So I have been wondering, are the emotions between people really that strong? Are there really such sincere, pure, and beautiful emotions between people? Or does everyone wear a hypocritical and beautiful mask and use words like love and friendship to cover up the entanglement of interests? This curiosity has always been with me. In fact, I am very grateful to Hogwarts for giving me this opportunity, otherwise I think I will do something not so good in the future. Adam couldn't help asking. Don't your parents have a good relationship? I actually don't find anything wrong with their relationship. Although there are frictions, they are all small disagreements in normal life. But maybe I just didn't find the problem. I can't test their feelings, and there is no way to try. So you use your future to test our relationship? Adam opened his mouth. We are roommates who have only known each other for a year. But you have to admit that although our personalities are very different, we get along surprisingly well, don't we? Bernard spread his hands. There are so many dormitories around, and there is no dormitory where the relationship between the 5 people is as good as ours. Although there have been some frictions between us, they have all been well resolved. This roommate relationship is as perfect as the marriage between my parents. I still can't understand it. It doesn't matter. It's impossible for a person to fully understand another person's thoughts. It's good to seek common ground while reserving differences, just like what we have done in the past year. They can be said to be very different in various aspects such as living habits and personalities, but they can live together well, respecting and accepting each other's differences. So back to that question. Bernard looked at Adam again. Why didn't you report me the first time you found me casting the unforgivable curse? Because I saw it. What? I saw the object of your unforgivable curse. Bernard's eyes widened slightly. How did you do it? Claw cards. The magic of the claw cards can recall the past, and after that I returned to your classroom at that time. Adam looked at Bernard and said. I saw, you cast Cruciatus on a stone at that time. Chapter 44. The reason why the unforgivable curse is unforgivable is because the emotions required to cast it are extremely extreme. The unforgivable curse is the real reason for going to Azkaban when casting the unforgivable curse. So normally, it is impossible to cast a spell like the Cruciatus curse on a stone, unless a person has a firm desire to torture the stone. Adam looked at Bernard, who was suddenly embarrassed, and said lightly. If you find a cockroach or a flobberworm, I won't be so confident in you. He even let himself have the idea of torturing a stone and was unwilling to find a living thing. I was leaving myself a way out. Bernard's neck stiffened. If you had reported me at that time, you would have found out that I had never used the Cruciatus curse when you used the flashback curse. The flashback curse will reproduce the object of the curse, and the stone is obviously not one of them. Then why didn't you leave yourself a way out this time? Looking at Bernard, who was speechless, Adam smiled slightly. You want to make such a test, after all, you are the first to have such pure emotions, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't care so much, and use such a costly way to test our friendship with you. You can use a way that won't affect you. Seeing that Bernard was about to get angry, Adam immediately changed the subject. Your way out method is actually still in the legal system of ordinary people. The Muggle police have limited ways to collect evidence. But wizards not only have truth serum, but even have a pensieve that can reproduce memory. There is one in our principal's office. Don't think of using similar methods in the future, be careful not to pit yourself. Bernard was stunned and nodded. Speaking of which, what are the Dementors and Wizengamot you mentioned before? Dementors are the jailers of Azkaban, a kind of. Because they were a little selfless in the chat, they were embarrassed when they looked at their wrinkled fingers when they were getting dressed. Back in the dormitory, just when the roommates were curious about why they took so long to shower, Bernard took the initiative to tell everyone what happened during the day. The roommates showed the same expression as Adam when he first heard the reason. I don't quite understand, but I want to say that it can be forgiven, but Bernard's use of the Cruciatus curse to protect them during the day does not seem to be something that needs to be forgiven. Next time, don't do such exciting things. Uther sighed helplessly. Unforgivable curses and the like, don't use them unless it's a real life and death moment. Adam looked at Uther with a slightly changed look. Good boy, why do you sound like you can be punished? After that day, no one mentioned that incident. In a blink of an eye, it was the end of year dinner of the school year. During this period, the only news about Harry was that he missed the final Quidditch final, resulting in Slytherin still winning the Quidditch Cup. In addition to the school points that Harry and others had deducted from Gryffindor before, this year's school cup will undoubtedly fall into the hands of Slytherin, right? Don't be sad yet, how about a taro pie? Professor Dumbledore announced the scores of the 4 colleges at the teacher's table, while Adam was distributing snacks. After distributing them to his roommates, Adam also stuffed one into the hands of Cedric, who looked regretful. It was hot and looked like it had just been baked. Food should not be missed. Cedric took a bite while it was hot. The dense taro filling and the crispy shell complemented each other, making him feel much happier. It's delicious, and it is recommended to be put on the shelves. Before he had time to give feedback to Adam, Cedric saw Professor Dumbledore's performance. Yes, yes, well done, Slytherin. Applauding the temporary top score of the college, Professor Dumbledore smiled kindly and continued to speak when the Slytherins gradually had a bad feeling. However, several recent events must also be taken into account. Gryffindor adds 50 points. Gryffindor adds 50 points. Gryffindor adds 60 points. Gryffindor adds another 10 points. During the dinner, the Slytherins were a little dazed, especially the golden and red decorations around, which were too dazzling under the candlelight. What happened? A Slytherin couldn't help asking. Damn Dumbledore, he is blatantly biased. His classmate angrily stabbed the fork into the ribs in front of him. Shut up, didn't you see that Professor Snape didn't say anything? The classmate's words did not attract the approval of the crowd, but instead attracted a round of eye rolls. If Professor Dumbledore really gave those Gryffindors extra points out of selfishness, how could Professor Snape allow it? But, he didn't make anything clear at all. This is what makes the Slytherins most angry. If they can make it clear, they might be able to add 170 points. In response, Adam said that children should not think about such a good thing, otherwise your parents will be in danger once Voldemort is resurrected. Although Gryffindor won the final victory in the College Cup competition, the only unhappy people in the entire hall were Slytherins. There was no way, because they were so hated when they won the College Cup twice before. Cheers! For example, Adam and his friends clinked their glasses with colorful soda to celebrate Slytherin's loss of the College Cup. After the year-end dinner, everything was fine. The whole Hogwarts was immersed in the atmosphere of the holiday. The only episode was probably the report card was issued on the last day of Hogwarts. Oh my god, Adam, you are really a monster. Cologne jumped up behind Adam and took a look, then wailed. Everyone is sleeping in class. How can you get an O in History of Magic? Eugene patted Cologne's shoulder to comfort him, but after hearing this, he looked down at the History of Magic with an O on the report card and silently withdrew his hand. It's better not to continue to stimulate him. Even if none of the 5 people in the dormitory failed, Adam's O in all the subjects was a bit outrageous, so the other 4 people pressed him to make a delicious meal to comfort them. So they had hot pot that night, right at the round table in the dormitory. Although the 4 people complained that Adam was lazy, this way of eating whatever he wanted was unexpectedly popular with everyone. Then we have a deal. After putting the shrimp paste into the hot pot, Uther looked at the other 4 people. Come to Egypt to visit me during this holiday. Let's try our best. Although everyone nodded, they still couldn't decide on their own about going abroad. It's not about money. None of the 5 people present have a lack of money, but their parents can't spare the time. They can't fly to Egypt by themselves. If it doesn't work, I'll ask my dad to negotiate with the British Ministry of Magic. It's better not to trouble your dad. Adam stretched out his hand to stop Uther from thinking further. His father is the Minister of Magic in Egypt. It's better not to take it to the diplomatic level when a few children travel abroad. Let's go back and negotiate with our parents. At least one of my parents should be able to spare time. At worst, I can ask my grandparents to take me. If it doesn't work, we will meet up first and let my parents take us together. Chapter 45. Goodbye. Everyone's parents were basically picking up people on the platform. After saying goodbye to his friends, Adam also found his grandparents on the platform. Oh, dear, are you doing well in Hogwarts? After hugging the 2 old people one by one, Adam showed a happy smile. Very good, I made very good friends. That's good. Emma rubbed the top of his head. Let's go, your parents are waiting for you at King's Cross Station. Are they here too? Adam was stunned and rushed out along platform 9 3/4 first. Sure enough, he saw Mr. Reed and Ms. Lee staring at this side. Oh dear. Ms. Lee rarely showed such a sentimental side, but this time she quickly walked up and hugged Adam, pressing his head on her shoulder. You've grown taller. Of course, Mom, it's been a year. Letting go of Ms. Lee, Adam looked at Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed did not make such a big move, and nodded to Adam reservedly. Adam was not surprised. In recent years, his style as a father has changed frequently, and he has been very dramatic. He will return to the original state within 3 days. I just don't know which employee he heard the parenting tips from this time, and what script he got. Did you encounter any danger at school? It seems that some dangerous things did happen at school, but it has nothing to do with me. That's good. Mr. Reed nodded and took out a bottle of Coke in a glass bottle from his pocket. Welcome home. Oh, is this the father who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside? Because the fees charged by British dentists are almost ripped off, Mr. Reed and Ms. Lee are quite concerned about Adam's dental health. This kind of sweet sparkling water is rarely allowed to Adam. In the past, being able to drink happy water would really make Adam happy. Although he has achieved the freedom of happy water now, Adam still reached out to take the Coke. Unexpectedly, Mr. Reed dodged Adam's hand first, and then used his thumb to hold the Coke bottle cap in Adam's puzzled eyes. About 10 seconds later, Mr. Reed, with a red face, silently took out a bottle opener from his other pocket. Bang! Thank you, Dad. Adam took the Coke and drank a sip while holding back a laugh. Ahem. Under the smiling gaze of his wife and parents, Mr. Reed coughed awkwardly twice. We should go home. You must not have eaten anything delicious on the way? A sumptuous welcome dinner has been prepared at home. Just because he guessed this, Adam, who watched his friends in the car show off their food before parting, did not eat anything himself and deliberately went hungry. Okay. Go to Egypt. At dinner, Adam proposed the idea of going to Egypt for team building with his classmates. As expected, the four parents couldn't help but hesitate when they first heard it. Who is the classmate you are talking about? His name is Uther Ramses. This surname, as expected, attracted the attention of his parents, but his grandparents didn't seem to react to it. His father is the minister of the Egyptian Ministry of Magic. Now it was the grandparents who reacted the most. Ramses. Minister of Magic. The two couples looked at each other, and then there was a burst of information exchange, and Adam occasionally corrected their cognitive errors. A descendant of the pharaoh. No wonder he is the prime minister of Egyptian wizards. Mr. Reed nodded, then looked at Adam. If that's the case, then you don't have to worry too much about safety issues. Your mother and I can also spare time, but the problem is that we are both squibs. Obviously, Mr. Reed has learned some knowledge of the wizarding world from his parents during this period. Adam hesitated. This seems to be a real problem. Even if Uther and others don't discriminate against squibs, Adam doesn't dare to guarantee that other wizards they met along the way don't discriminate against squibs. Although he was not afraid of Trace when there were wizards, if he encountered such a thing, he couldn't take out the dark staff and claw cards in front of his parents and perform a 10-year tree 10-second tree man show for them, right? Moreover, even if he killed the other party, he couldn't erase the mental damage his parents suffered. Hey, it seems that the card erasure can erase memories? No, no. Is it because he has been with Bernard, a guy who can be tortured and handcuffed, for a long time? Why has his thoughts become dangerous? Well, how could such an idea come out of his head when he is such a pure person? It must be Bernard's influence. Then let us take Adam. Old Reed looked eager to try. I haven't been to Egypt yet. I have no objection, but Adam, do you still remember? Emma looked at Adam. Of course, Grandma. Adam winked at Emma to indicate that she didn't need to worry, he hadn't forgotten. What are you talking about? Mr. Reed's suspicious eyes moved between his son and mother. According to the employees, it seems that grandparents and grandchildren can easily become particularly close. This is an accurate conclusion based on Mr. Reed's current experience. Nothing, Dad, this is a secret between me and Grandma. Mr. Reed looked at the two of them with resentment, and took a bite of food helplessly. That night, Adam returned to his room and released Xiao K.S.I. by an Aries that was the owl Adam bought when he went to Diagon Alley with his grandparents before school started. Aries is a male snowy owl. At that time, Adam had high expectations and named him Aries, and this young man did not disappoint Adam's expectations. He usually has a very good personality, is very powerful when hunting, and is also good at delivering letters. After opening the cage, Adam found that his Aries looked listless. What happened? Hey? Is he hungry? Adam checked and found that the food in the cage was all there, and there was even more left than expected. Your appetite is also poor? Is it because of the bumpy ride on the express? It doesn't seem like it. Could he be sick? Aries still showed no signs of improvement after coming out of the cage. Just when Adam was at a loss as to whether to send Aries to St. Mungo's or your owl shop in Diagon Alley, SPI spoke up. I think he seems to be a little depressed. Depressed? Adam was shocked. What troubles can an owl have? Did I not ask him to deliver letters recently? Aries actually loves his work so much. Wait, SPI, you can actually tell whether an owl is depressed. Just feel it with your heart. Use, with your heart. Seeing SPI's convincing words, Adam believed it. Sibi is the sealed beast in charge of the hidden cards, and many of the Clow cards under his command are indeed feminine and spiritual. Then what should I do? Ask Aries to help deliver the letter. He doesn't seem to be depressed because he didn't deliver the letter. Sibi continued to stare at Aries for a while, then tilted his head uncertainly. He seems to be, lovesick. Chapter 46. Cough cough cough. Adam was choked by his saliva, and he patted his chest desperately and drank a few sips of water before he recovered. Concerned greetings came from downstairs, and the depressed Aries also cast a concerned look. I'm fine. I just choked on the water. After shouting downstairs, Adam closed the door and picked up Aries and sat down on the small sofa in the corner. Are you sure, Sibi? If you are not sure, don't slander his innocence. Aries is only 3 years old. He is still a baby. Said Adam lowered his head and rubbed Aries's furry head. Adam, wake up. Do you remember that he is a snowy owl? Sibi shouted speechlessly. Adam was stunned. Oh, yes. It seems to make sense. By the way, how old is the snowy owl when it becomes an adult? I don't know about that. Sibi lay on the bed and shook his tail. Looking at Aries, Adam fell into deep thought. If it was really lovesickness, it was not impossible. Snowy owls are very loyal animals. They are rare birds that live together in a monogamous way. Even when food is very sufficient, polygamy is rare. So, Aries, did you find a girlfriend in the owl shed? Goo. Aries buried his face under his wings, looking embarrassed. Adam? Really? Don't be shy. Whose girl is it? Did you succeed? Hey. Adam's gossip fire burned fiercely, and he kept poking Aries' feathers with his fingers. Aries couldn't stand it anymore and ran back to the cage by himself. Don't hide, at least tell me whose owl it is. If I know the other party, I can send a few letters, and you can have a chance to meet. Hey. Aries was originally facing Adam in the cage, and he turned his head 180 degrees to look at him. Of course it's true, tell me who it is. Oh, you can't talk. Adam was a little embarrassed. They didn't have any photos, and all the owls in Hogwarts were in the owl shed. How could he know everyone? But speaking of it, the snowy owl should only be interested in snowy owls, right? There are not many people who have snowy owls in Hogwarts. Because of its unique white appearance, the price of snowy owls is very expensive among owls. Adam remembered that he had seen no more than 2-digit snowy owls in the owl shed. He only knew 3 of them. He hoped that the owner of the one Aries liked was one of these 3. Aries obviously couldn't know who the other party's owner was, so Adam prepared to write a letter to all 3 people and let Aries send it to try. Unexpectedly, the first letter was successful. It's really Hedwig. Adam was a little surprised. He chose to buy the snowy owl because of Hedwig's influence. Unexpectedly, the gears of fate turned around and came back. Hiss hiss hiss. Aries flapped his wings excitedly, and his mouth made a completely different hissing sound from usual. Adam probably knew what he meant. After all, Harry's living conditions were there, and how much better could Hedwig be? But what can I do? I can't go to Harry and say to him, "Hey Harry, my owl likes your owl." Anyway, Hedwig will suffer with you. Why don't you bring her to our home? Aries ran back to the cage silently. Adam spread his hands. Why don't you try to find Hedwig and see if she's willing to elope with you? I can still afford to raise an extra owl. Last night, when Ms. Lee asked him how much he spent in school and whether he wanted her to give him more, Adam didn't know how to answer. His biggest expense this year was the investment in the twins, but he made it back with a Christmas dinner and had a lot of surplus. Aries moved his head when he heard this and didn't want to pay attention to Adam. This time Adam really had no choice but to let Aries be alone and be more open-minded. He still had to go to Nicholas Flamel's appointment. The card in the Cloud deck can teleport to any place he has been to, so Adam came to Nicholas Flamel's house alone. After knocking on the door, Nicholas Flamel came over after a long time and opened the door. He was a little surprised to see that Adam was the only one outside the door. "Has your grandmother gone home?" "No. Mr. Flamel, I came alone. After thinking for a while, Adam still couldn't find a suitable name, so he had to call him that for now. When Adam spoke, he waved the dark staff in his hand, and Nicholas Flamel also noticed this uniquely shaped magic staff, with a hint of curiosity in his eyes, but that's all. It seems that our little Adam still has a lot of secrets. Please come in. Nico Flamel took very small steps and took almost 5 times as long as Adam to walk to the sofa and sit down. Do you know why I asked you to come? Nico Flamel looked at Adam and asked with a smile. Adam shook his head. He really didn't know. The Philosopher's Stone has been destroyed. Even though he already knew this, facing Nico Flamel's words that were no different from "I'm dying," Adam couldn't help but be stunned. Yes, I'm dying, so I want to find someone to tell my story. But the people I know are all old people, and the story of an old man should not be attractive to another old man, but fortunately I met you, little Adam. Nico Flamel smiled. Would you like to listen to my story? Of course. Nico Flamel said it himself, his own story, how could Adam not be interested? Under Adam's gaze, Nicholas Flamel slowly spoke. 665 years ago. Nicholas Flamel also told the story before he refined the Philosopher's Stone in detail, but Adam was not impatient. Life in France more than 600 years ago was also very interesting. However, that period of life accounted for too small a proportion of Nicholas Flamel's life. Nicholas Flamel soon talked about the Philosopher's Stone. When I really refined the Philosopher's Stone, I couldn't believe it, but when I used the Philosopher's Stone to make the first piece of pure gold, the first elixir of life, I finally realized that I really achieved the highest achievement in alchemy. Then there was a story about the story after refining the Philosopher's Stone. It felt a bit like a cool article, but Nicholas Flamel's story did not continue to be cool. This is not the world of Full Metal Alchemist. The Philosopher's Stone did not bring him powerful power, so in the covetousness of everyone, Nicholas Flamel quickly hid with his wife. Then the story seemed to have reached the part that Nicholas Flamel really wanted to tell. I was once extremely proud of my great achievement of refining the Philosopher's Stone. In my 665 years of life, almost half of the time was spent trying to replicate the original success. However, after 300 years, I experienced countless failures, and my last hope was shattered. I had to admit that all the honors bestowed on me by the world were just because of an accident. I did not really master the ability to refine the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone was just a wonderful coincidence, nothing more. Chapter 47. But just as I walked out of the laboratory in despair, Pernell invited me to dinner, just like the 300 years and more than 100,000 days and nights before. At that moment, I finally realized what a stupid thing I had done. I threw away all the good things in my life and spent 300 years on a stone. But I seemed to wake up too late. My wife and I went from being full of vigor and vitality to being gray-haired and staggering old people. Since then, I have never thought about the Philosopher's Stone again, and I have concentrated on living with Pernell. In these years, we have been to this most of the world's countries. Nicholas Flamel took a sip of black tea, smiled at Adam who looked curious, and continued. The elixir of life can only prevent people from dying of old age, but it can't stop people from aging. It's like a blessing from Zeus to Tithonus, so perennial, and I have become osteoporotic and slow in our steps over the years. We can't even eat food that needs to be chewed now. Fortunately, the elixir of life is a potion and not something else. In addition, we can drink some black tea, hot cocoa, and the like. Despite the aging of the body, despite the people we are familiar with have already left us one by one, but I still miss this world. I have always fantasized about living forever with Pernell in this world, but a few years ago, Pernell told me that she was tired. Speaking of this, Nicholas Flamel was a little disappointed. After my inquiry, she told me that her sense of taste had long disappeared, and those black teas did not even taste like water to her. She was tired of continuing to live. From that moment on, I realized that perhaps we should have set off for the next stop a long time ago. Just for I stayed in a place where I shouldn't have stayed for so long because I had to find some unimportant things. So when Dumbledore asked me if I could borrow the Philosopher's Stone, even though I knew that the Philosopher's Stone would be destroyed, I still agreed. It's time for Perennial and I to set off for the next stop. After hundreds of years of silence, our lives are finally going to usher in some unprecedented changes. The most gratifying thing is that Perennial will be with me. There is nothing more gratifying in the world than this. Nicholas Flamel couldn't help laughing as he spoke, and it was obvious that he was really happy from the bottom of his heart. Adam probably understood what Nicholas Flamel meant. For Nicholas Flamel, who had lived for more than 600 years, the biggest attraction of this world to him was his wife. If there was no wife, continuing to live in this world would only mean that he could drink a few more cups of black tea, red wine, and other things that he had been drinking for hundreds of years. There was no meaning. If continuing to live in this world has become a torture for his wife, then embracing death might not be a bad idea. For this couple, death is just another great adventure. For the first time, Adam understood the meaning of this sentence so deeply. At this moment, Adam gave up the idea of giving Nicholas Flamel another Philosopher's Stone. He really didn't need the Philosopher's Stone anymore. I'm sorry that you took the time to listen to the story of an old man like me. Please don't say that, Mr. Flamel. I feel honored. Adam said sincerely. Not only did he benefit a lot from hearing about the life of a legendary figure like Nicholas Flamel, but he also gained a substantial amount of magic power. Magic power is closely related to the soul and mind. Nicholas Flamel's legendary story of his life, including his understanding of death, helped Adam even more than what Adam learned this year. I'm glad to hear you say that. Nicholas Flamel could see that the relative in front of him, whose blood relationship with him was already very thin, did not deceive him, and smiled with relief. As a reward for fulfilling my last wish, I want to give you some gifts. Gifts. In fact, it can also be understood as inheritance. After all, the only people in this world who are related to me by blood are you and your grandmother. Adam blinked, watched Nicholas Flamel stand up, walked to the side of the cabinet where the Philosopher's Stone was placed before, and waved at him. Come here, please forgive me for an old man over 600 years old who can no longer move such heavy things. God, how old was I when I put them here? I was really energetic at that time. Adam hurried to Nicholas Flamel's side. The gifts I want to give you are all in this cabinet. Nicholas Flamel took a photo. He patted the cabinet beside him, and then pointed to the books on the top shelf of the cabinet. First of all, this is the book that changed my life. As soon as this sentence came out, Adam already knew what the book was. Sure enough, Nicholas Flamel followed up. The Book of Abraham of the Jews. Although the refining of the Philosopher's Stone has been proved to be just an accident, this book is still very meaningful to me. I hope you don't use it to pad the table legs. I will keep it well. Adam nodded solemnly. Don't take it so seriously, I was just joking just now, it doesn't matter if you use it to pad the table legs. Nicholas Flamel smiled. The second layer of the cabinet was originally used to store the Philosopher's Stone, and now there are several small bottles filled with blood-red liquid. These are the elixir of life, and its formula. Nicholas Flamel took a bottle from it, and then took a small note and handed it to Adam. Under Adam's wide-eyed gaze, Nicholas Flamel smiled. The existence of the Philosopher's Stone is not a well-kept secret for many people. Although your connection with the Philosopher's Stone is very weak and Dumbledore may not be able to find it, I have been with the Philosopher's Stone day and night for more than 600 years. Don't worry that an old man like me who will not live for many days will reveal your secret. This seems to be a symbol, child. One Philosopher's Stone is destroyed, and another Philosopher's Stone is born immediately. An old couple gives up the Philosopher's Stone and embraces death. The Philosopher's Stone reappears in the world in the hands of a child. At the same time, this seems to confirm my guess. The success of the Philosopher's Stone is really just a coincidence, but it doesn't seem so coincidental, right? This world is so wonderful. Handing the bottle of elixir and the formula to Adam, Nicholas Flamel said. Take this, child, I hope you cannot repeat my mistakes and use the life brought to you by the Philosopher's Stone on things that you think are meaningful. Chapter 48. On the third shelf of the cabinet was another very thick book. Nicholas Flamel asked Adam to take it down from the cabinet and put it on the table. This is a contact book. Nicholas Flamel patted the cover of the book with a little nostalgia on his face. I heard from Emma that you have just come into contact with the wizard world, but you should have seen the portraits that can move and talk in Hogwarts, right? Although there are few, I still made some friends. Some of them were afraid that our lives would be too lonely, so they gave me their portraits. It's a pity that I, an elder, have to leave after only meeting you a few times, so I give this book to you, hoping that the friends in the book can provide some help for your life on behalf of me and Perennial. Nicholas Flamel gently pushed the book in the direction of Adam. Every wizard in this book was once a legend, and their lives are far more exciting than mine, an old man who has wasted half his life. These portraits took them a lot of effort. Although they are not real people, they have the same thinking ability as them. When you feel confused, or I can try to ask them for help, don't feel shy, I have told them. Adam swallowed and touched the cover. Do you and his wife's portraits are also in this book? Touch Adam's head, of course. Then Nicole Lame suddenly remembered, yes, the owner of the last 2 portraits in this book has not died. If you encounter any danger or difficulties, you can try to contact them with the portrait if they also have their own portraits. Dumbledore, the other is a child from Hogwarts. You may have heard his name. His name is Newt Scamander. Then here is this. Take it, child, and open it. Nico Flamel handed Adam a piece of parchment, which looked a little old. Adam unfolded the parchment, which was covered with dense handwriting. What is this? Including the one under our feet, it contains the addresses of my 192 properties around the world. Each one is protected by the Fidelius charm. I give them to you. Nico Flamel said lightly. During his trip around the world with his wife, in order to ensure safety, he did not choose to stay in a hotel, but bought a property directly in each place he arrived at. He was not short of money anyway. Then Nico Flamel waved his hand on the parchment, and a few scattered addresses were marked in red, and added. These red-marked addresses are known to others besides me and Perennial. No need for too much reminder, 1 sentence is enough. Adam nodded, rolled up the parchment again and put it away. Nicholas Flamel's last legacy was a key. This is the key to Gringotts Vault No. 4. Nicholas Flamel took the key out of his pocket and put it in Adam's hand. There are no gold galleons or anything like that in it, but I don't think you need it. Nicholas Flamel smiled at the new owner of the Philosopher's Stone. After opening the vault, you will see half of the vault filled with papers. Those are the manuscripts of my lifelong research on alchemy and magic. If you are not interested in them, please donate them to Beaux Batons, my and Perennial's alma mater. The remaining half of the vault is filled with some of my collections or inventions. Most of them are not precious, but they are quite interesting. I hope you will like them. Saying so much in one breath, telling stories and giving away legacies obviously put a great burden on Nicholas Flamel, but looking at his sparkling eyes, he should be very excited. After handing the last key to Adam, Nicholas Flamel let him go back and refused Adam's request to attend their funeral. We don't plan to hold a funeral. After meeting you, I have said everything I want to say goodbye to. At the end of life, please let us enjoy the quiet world of 2 people. For the Flamel couple, they set their own death date, so they were very calm when dealing with the aftermath, and even say goodbye to those who want to say goodbye one by one, and there is no need for a funeral. After telling Adam his death date and where his grave will be, and giving Adam a photo of the couple as he said before, Nicholas Flamel closed the door. Adam stared at the door for a while. He knew that this was the last time he saw Nicholas Flamel. What's wrong with Adam? While eating cake, Xiao Ke looked at Adam and couldn't help asking Sibi beside him. Who should I ask if you ask me? Sibi rolled his eyes. Why don't you put down your fork and ask? I won't. Otherwise you will definitely eat all the remaining cake at once. You are slandering. Hearing the noise of the 2 sealed beasts, Adam came back to his senses and couldn't help laughing at the hairy balls fighting together. The story of Nicholas Flamel has come to a successful conclusion, and his story has just begun, isn't it? Justice from heaven. A cat that was a little too big for the energy-saving Xiao Ke and SPI joined the battlefield. Hey! Adam! Over here! The energetic Colin is always the most active one in the dormitory. Adam heard his call as soon as he arrived at the airport. When he walked over there, Bernard and Colin were already there. Colin was accompanied by a lady, while Bernard was alone. My parents have a client who has been scheduled for a long time, and it is not convenient for 2 ordinary people to go. Sure enough, it was similar to Adam's consideration. Adam, long time no see. My parents are also not free. This is my sister Kelly, this is the Adam I mentioned. Hello. Kelly looked Adam up and down, obviously curious about this roommate who was very magical in the mouth of her younger brother. Hello. After greeting Kelly politely, Adam also introduced his grandfather. Perhaps because Emma was a little uncomfortable about the Flamel couple's matter, she did not come with Adam. Eugene is the only one left now. Oh. He's here. Cologne just stretched out his hand and said hello, and then he was surprised. Eugene's outfit. Wow. Long time no see. Wearing an expedition suit that looked like something you'd see in a movie, carrying a big bag, and leading an old woman dressed similarly, Eugene came over and nodded to everyone. My parents are busy, this is my grandmother. Hello, everyone. Eugene's grandmother looked very kind, and from Eugene's personality, one could probably guess what kind of person this grandmother who raised him was. All the people in the group arrived, and as expected, the plane was delayed. Do you want to eat something? At lunchtime, Adam opened the backpack that had been expanded with the wheel card, and took out a bunch of packed rice balls from it. There are 4 flavors: teriyaki eel, black pepper beef, honey barbecued pork, and vegetable mayonnaise. Chapter 49. The large amount of beef without any fishy smell and the moderately soft and hard rice collide between the lips and teeth. The rice steamed with vegetable juice provides nutrition without affecting the pleasure of eating meat, and the right amount of black pepper sauce adds a soul-like embellishment to the rice ball. All the ingredients of the whole rice ball are perfectly mixed together, composing an intoxicating food symphony. Swallowing a large mouthful of black pepper beef rice ball in her mouth, Kelly excitedly patted her brother's shoulder. You are right. Adam's cooking skills are simply amazing. Will he really open a store in Hogsmeade? When? Oh, Kelly, don't pat my shoulder. The rice ball is going to fall apart. At least wait until after graduation. Alas, why can't you graduate right away? Kelly sighed regretfully. Eugene and his grandmother both like fish, and teriyaki eel rice balls, which don't need to pick bones and are sweet, are very much to their taste. Oh my God, Adam, your cooking skills are even better than your parents. Old Reed also ate food made by his grandson for the first time. It's a pity that underage wizards can't cast spells at home, otherwise I can make more delicious food. Adam sighed. It's a pity that his parents' home is not a place where wizards live in the Ministry of Magic, otherwise it doesn't matter if he casts spells at home. It's a pity that Uther is not here. Cologne sighed regretfully. Speaking of which, do we have to eat Egyptian specialties when we go to Egypt? I don't think it will be as delicious as Adam's. But at least it's Egyptian, I'm looking forward to it. Time passed quickly in the chat of everyone, and the plane that was delayed for 2 hours finally arrived at Cairo International Airport 3 hours later. Here. Adam and his family's flight information was not a secret to Uther's family, so they were waiting at the airport pickup point early. The 5 people in the dormitory successfully met. Ah, so Uther, you dress like this at home. Cologne sighed as he looked at Uther. What's wrong? Uther looked at himself, and it was a very common Colosirus. Don't you wear, Cologne gestured around his head. Uther's mouth twitched. How could I wear that kind of thing when I go out? Feeling speechless at Cologne's fantasy, Uther shook his head. I'll take you to my house first. My parents are in the Ministry of Magic and won't be back until the evening. Okay. When he arrived at Uther's house, Cologne looked regretful again. I thought you would live in the pyramid. I didn't expect you would just live in a villa in the oasis. The pyramid is the tomb of the pharaoh, how could you live in it? Uther was speechless again and held his forehead. But pyramids are cool. Would you sleep in a coffin just because it's cool? Don't you have mummies at home? No. Who would keep a corpse at home? I heard that mummies stuffed with spices shouldn't stink. Is the point whether it stinks or not? After an exhausting question and answer session, everyone finally came to the dining table. The dinner will be quite rich, so let's just eat some fruit first. Is this cactus fruit? Adam picked out an unfamiliar but memorable fruit from a table full of various fruits. Yes, you can eat it after cutting it open. Eat the inside, it's similar to dragon fruit. Uther used a knife at hand to cut one open, picked out an object with small thorns, and handed it to Adam. But there are octagonal thorns on the head, you have to pick them out before you can eat it. Adam took it and tasted it, his eyes lit up. Very sweet, tastes great. Although the taste feels not as delicate as dragon fruit, and the seeds inside are harder, it tastes unexpectedly sweet. Why is mine sour? Cologne put on a mask of pain. Oh, this one has to be picked too, it's impossible for every fruit to be sweet. Uther looked innocent. When he arranged everyone to sit down just now, he definitely didn't deliberately let Cologne sit in the direction where there are more sour fruits. Generally, it tastes sour and sweet, very delicious. After tasting the cactus fruit, everyone gave it a good review. Considering that there were several elderly people at the table, Uther arranged for the servants to squeeze some fruits that were inconvenient to chew into juice, such as sugar cane, and some fruits that were inconvenient to eat, such as pomegranates. In addition, there were various fruits such as dates and bananas, most of which were very sweet. The climate in Egypt was very suitable for planting fruits. Adam remembered that one of the properties Nicholas Flamel left him was in Egypt. He might as well go and see if there was any land that could be planted. But thinking about it, it was estimated that there would not be any land, and even if there was, Adam would not have the time to take care of it. Sure enough, fruits and other things were faster to change with Ganbrand, and it seemed that there was no need to change the non-sweet fruits. Although it was just a casual fruit, everyone basically ate a lot of it out of novelty, but the fruit was digested quickly, so it didn't delay dinner. Uther's parents came late after the sun set. Sorry, there are some urgent documents to be processed in the ministry today. Uther's father looked apologetic. I've kept you waiting for a long time. Are you all hungry? You don't have to wait for us to come back. It's okay. We ate a lot of fruit in the afternoon and we're not hungry. It was old Reed who spoke. Uther's father nodded to him in a friendly manner. Dinner will start soon. Before that, I want to thank. Ahem. Uther's mother was a beauty with Egyptian makeup. When she heard her husband habitually planning to start the kind of speech mode in the Ministry of Magic, she coughed twice. Oh. Hee hee. Several children are roommates and good friends with Uther, so we are all a family. Let's not talk too much. Let's eat, let's eat. After speaking official language for so many years, I'm not used to talking about homely things. It happened that the dishes were served now, and Uther's father hurriedly invited everyone to eat. Although it's not as delicious as what you cook, it's still very special. Uther and Adam's seats were close together, and he leaned close to Adam's ear and said, Then I must try it carefully, maybe you can also experience the delicious food from home in Hogwarts. Adam smiled and said, Uther's eyes lit up. If you need ingredients, I can ask my father to send them to the British Ministry of Magic through the International Magical Cooperation Department, and then send them to Hogwarts. As long as you are happy. Adam could only sigh that if you have money and power, you can really do whatever you want. It must be said that the special food of Egypt does taste good, although the style is a bit rough. For example, a barbecue that looks a bit like meba is made by mixing minced meat and vegetable spices together. It doesn't look good, but it tastes surprisingly good. There is also the grilled fish that must be mentioned. It is well handled, without any fishy smell of internal organs. It tastes great as long as you squeeze a little lemon juice. Adam and Eugene both enjoyed it very much. Chapter 50. Pyramids. Mummy. Looking at the two people who were clamoring to see the ancestral tombs and corpses of their ancestors, Adam could not help but remain silent. Well, since you want to see it so much, let's put the pyramids on the first day. Adam looked at Uther in shock. I've said it doesn't matter. The pyramids that are now open to tourists are not fake, but there are no real things inside. Uther shrugged. It's just right to take you to see the Sphinx. Because of the species' habits of being smart enough and liking to ask difficult questions and riddles, the biggest employment direction of the Sphinx, whether in Egypt or elsewhere, is to guard treasures and passages. In Egypt, it is naturally to guard pyramids and temples. So, no matter what the original travel plan Uther arranged for everyone was, at the strong request of Cologne and Bernard, they set out on the road to the pyramids. The means of transportation to the pyramids is a small bus. It doesn't look big from the outside. There is a traceless stretching spell inside. It is not crowded to accommodate more than 10 or 20 people. There are fruits, drinks, and ice cubes next to the seats. On the way, Uther looked at the two people with excited faces and reminded them. Although we are going to the pyramids, it is definitely different from what you think. Those pyramids are not open to the public, but they have been dealt with by the Ministry of Magic a long time ago, and it is basically impossible for anything dangerous to happen. Of course, the premise is that you don't act recklessly. Otherwise, Uther's parents would not let Uther take them to play alone. Got it. Unlike the pyramids near Cairo, the car drove all the way to the depths of the desert, and they arrived at their destination after several hours of travel. Even if the Muggle-repelling spell is cast, some things in these pyramids still make the ancient pharaohs build them deep in the desert. Uther said as he got out of the car. I will take you to play around Cairo these days, appreciate the Nile River, and then take you to Thebes, where there are many pharaoh tombs in the Valley of the Kings, which is much more interesting than here. Uther couldn't help but smile. And my favorite, Egypt's pride Ramesseum, I will show you what it really looks like. Ramesseum Tent Iris, a sacrificial temple built during the reign of Ramses II, is second to none in Egyptian history in terms of scale and splendor. However, in the current cognition of the Muggle world, it is only a ruin. After briefly mentioning the arrangements for the next few days, Uther took everyone to the closed door of the pyramid and reached out his hand to touch the crack from top to bottom. Boom boom! Amid the sound of trembling gravel, Uther led them to the other side of the pyramid. What was that just now? Cologne looked curiously at the door that had no other movement. That door is the switch to enter the pyramid, but it is not the entrance to the pyramid. Uther's smile was a bit sarcastic. Even if it is the correct way to open the door, anyone who enters from that door, except the descendants of the pharaoh, will fall into the underworld and never come back. Don't tell others. Bernard came over and said. So, have you seen the underworld? No, an ancestor once went into that door out of curiosity. There was a dead end inside. The long corridor prohibited all magic, and at the end was a wall made of a whole stone. Except for a linen curtain hanging at the door and the portraits of Anubis on both sides, there was nothing in the whole corridor. As they spoke, they had already arrived at the real entrance. Uther used his magic wand to touch a boulder, and with that boulder as the center, more than a dozen boulders seemed to melt and transformed into a huge stone door. The colorful paintings on the door were as bright as if they were just painted yesterday. Please come in. He gently stretched out his hand and pushed, and the stone door opened inward. What came into view was nothing else but a giant male sphinx. Please tell me, what is it, master? The sphinx originally thought that someone from the Ministry of Magic came to feed him, and was about to say the riddle he had come up with recently. Unexpectedly, he saw Uther, and quickly swallowed the riddle behind him, stood up and walked aside to make way. This is a sphinx I raised. It's called Mauchuan. You can take a look at it, but it's best not to do anything rude. Uther looked at the behemoth called Mauchuan. These are my friends, don't resist. Mauchuan. Eugene looked up at the sphinx and couldn't help saying. The opponent was at least 3 meters tall when he was lying on the ground. Eugene would the reason for the question was obvious, and Uther sighed. Believe me, Mauchuan was really small when he was young. He grew so big without knowing it. I find it hard to believe that he grew to this size without knowing it. Congratulations, Eugene would complain, and his roommates didn't think it was a big deal, but Eugene's grandmother was happy. She had no interest in the Sphinx, and she was resting with Old Reed and Kelly. Old Reed didn't have any special hobbies for magical animals, and he just looked at them, and Kelly had seen the Sphinx before, so she naturally had no interest in it. Adam walked to Mauchuan and touched it. The Sphinx was also called the Sphinx. Adam was not interested in the human face, but the body was indeed similar to that of a lion. The coarse hair looked carefully groomed, and it was as soft as satin when touched. It was almost comparable to Zyok's body. Adam, who had already gained experience in touching Zyok, unconsciously used professional techniques, and the hairy ball's tail unconsciously lifted up in the air, leaving an afterimage. Cologne was not interested in touching the hairy ball, and did not go forward to join him, but looked at Uther expectantly. Before, the hairy ball was going to give a riddle, right? Let's guess it. Yes, of course we have to experience the riddle of the Sphinx when we meet the Sphinx. Bernard followed. The hairy ball was immediately alert when he heard this, and looked at Uther expectantly. Well, it's okay, but if the Sphinx's riddle is answered incorrectly, the Sphinx will fall into a state of irritability and become more aggressive. Even if the hairy ball is raised by me, I can only guarantee that it will not attack us, and then we won't be able to observe it so closely. Then guess it. Adam let go of his hand and took a few steps back. He was more interested in the riddle of the Sphinx. If he really wanted to touch the hairy ball, he would have another choice. Seeing that everyone had reached a consensus, Mauchuan proudly straightened his upper body. Please tell me, what can run but never walk, has a mouth but never speaks, has a head but never sheds tears, has a bed but never sleeps? Uther raised his eyebrows. Years of familiarity allowed him to quickly guess Mauchuan's riddle. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief, which at least ensured that Mauchuan would not fall into a frenzy. Adam thought for a few seconds. Sphinx's riddles are usually not made up casually, and are basically inseparable from the environment in which it lives, so he quickly guessed the answer. Those who have guessed it should not tell the answer first, write it down on paper, and then everyone will take it out and check it together. Eugene suggested, taking out a notebook from his bag, tearing off the paper, and taking out a few pens and distributing them to everyone together with the paper. Have you guessed it? Cologne, who was still thinking, looked at him in surprise. Not yet. Eugene shook his head, then looked at Uther and Adam who had already started writing. But I think they have guessed it.